Why don't you just take me out instead?" Victoria's words hung in the air between them, and Ethan Cole felt his world tilt. His boss, the woman he'd worked for 3 years without ever crossing a line, had just shattered every professional boundary they'd carefully maintained. His fingers still hovered over her dating profile, the cursor blinking mockingly on the screen. Outside her office, the publishing house buzzed with Friday afternoon energy, oblivious to the earthquake happening behind closed doors. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. 3 years of grief, of survival, of protecting what remained of his broken family. And now this. One question. One impossible, terrifying, beautiful question. If you want to see how Ethan answers and how one moment of courage changes everything, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The apartment was too quiet. Ethan Cole stood in the kitchen of his cramped 2-bedroom apartment, staring at the coffee maker as it sputtered and hissed, producing the bitter fuel that would get him through another day. 5:47 a.m. 13 minutes before Mia's alarm would go off. 13 minutes of silence before the beautiful chaos of an 8-year-old's morning routine would fill the emptiness. He'd learned to measure time this way, in pockets of silence and noise, in the spaces between his daughter's laughter and the hollow ache that never quite went away. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days since Sarah died. Not that he was counting anymore, or so he told himself. The apartment still carried traces of her, though he'd packed away most of her things that first terrible year. A throw pillow she'd insisted on buying from a craft fair, the chipped mug with "World's Best Mom" that Mia refused to let him throw away, now sitting in the back of the cabinet, untouched. The faint smell of her perfume that he sometimes imagined he could still detect in their bedroom closet, though he knew it was just his mind playing tricks. Ethan poured his coffee, black and strong, and leaned against the counter. His reflection stared back at him from the microwave's dark surface, a 34-year-old man who looked older, with lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before grief had moved in and made itself at home. His dark hair needed cutting. His face needed more sleep than 4 hours a night. His life needed... He didn't finish that thought. He never did. "Daddy?" Ethan turned to find Mia standing in the doorway, her brown hair a tangled mess, clutching the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 2. She was wearing mismatched pajamas, dinosaurs on top, rainbows on the bottom, and squinting against the kitchen light. "Hey, Peanut." He set down his coffee and crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." She rubbed her eyes with one small fist. "Bad dream." His heart constricted. "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head, then wrapped her arms around his neck, the stuffed elephant squished between them. Ethan held her, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and the laundry detergent he always used too much of, and felt the familiar war between gratitude and grief wage in his chest. This little girl was everything, his reason for getting up, for going to work, for putting one foot in front of the other when all he wanted to do was stop moving and let the world go on without him. Mia was why he'd survived when Sarah hadn't. "I've got you," he whispered into her hair. "Always got you." She pulled back and looked at him with those serious brown eyes, Sarah's eyes. "I know, Daddy. Can I have chocolate chip pancakes?" And just like that, the moment shifted from tender to typical, and Ethan was grateful for it. He could handle typical. Typical was survival. "Nice try. It's a school day. How about oatmeal with a few chocolate chips?" Mia's nose wrinkled in disgust, but she nodded. "Deal. But a lot of chocolate chips." "A reasonable amount of chocolate chips." "A lot is reasonable, Daddy." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "Go get dressed. School clothes, not pajamas." "One time. I wore pajamas to school one time, and you never let me forget it." "You were 6, and you tried to convince me that pajamas were the same as regular clothes." "They could be," Mia called over her shoulder as she headed back to her room. "Fashion is subjective." Ethan shook his head, his smile lingering even as he turned back to start breakfast. Fashion is subjective. She'd picked that up from some YouTube video, no doubt, and now it was her justification for every questionable clothing choice. The morning routine unfolded with practiced efficiency. Oatmeal with chocolate chips, he gave her more than he should have, but less than she wanted. Mia's hair brushed and pulled into a ponytail that would be lopsided by lunch. Backpack checked for homework, lunch packed with a note scribbled on a napkin. "You're awesome, Zeb. Dad," which Mia claimed was embarrassing but never threw away. By 7:15, they were out the door, hustling down 3 flights of stairs because the elevator in their building had been broken for 2 weeks. By 7:30, Mia was at the crosswalk near her school, where Mrs. Chen, the crossing guard, greeted them both with a wave and a smile. "Morning, Ethan. Morning, Mia. Morning, Mrs. Chen." Mia bounced on her toes, already scanning the playground for her best friend Amy. Ethan crouched down one more time. "Have a good day, okay? I'll be here at 3:15. 3:15 sharp," Mia recited, a rule they'd established after he'd been late one too many times during the worst of his grief. "I know, Daddy. Love you." She kissed his cheek and was gone, a flash of pink backpack and untied shoelaces disappearing into the stream of children flowing through the school gates. Ethan stood there for a moment longer than necessary, watching until he couldn't pick her out from the crowd anymore. Then he checked his watch, 7:38, and swore under his breath. He had 22 minutes to make a 30-minute commute. He ran, Osham. Halstead Publishing occupied the 5th through 8th floors of a sleek glass building in the business district, a monument to the written word in an increasingly digital age. Ethan had worked there for 5 years, 2 before Sarah died, 3 after, as an executive assistant to Victoria Hale, the company's editorial director. He made it to his desk at 8:04, slightly out of breath and definitely sweaty, just as Victoria's office door opened. "You're late." Ethan looked up from booting up his computer to find Victoria Hale standing in her doorway, coffee cup in hand, one perfectly shaped eyebrow raised in what might have been amusement or disapproval. With Victoria, it was often hard to tell. 4 minutes, he said, still catching his breath. Elevator was broken again, had to take the stairs. We're on the 6th floor. I'm aware. Victoria's lips twitched, definitely amusement then. The Manchester meeting was moved up to 9. I need the Thompson contract revisions before then, and someone from marketing wants to discuss the spring catalog layout, which I'm delegating entirely to you because I'd rather set myself on fire than listen to another presentation about synergistic brand integration. Good morning to you too, Ethan muttered, pulling up his calendar. It's morning. Whether it's good remains to be seen. Victoria took a sip of her coffee, regarding him over the rim. You look terrible, by the way. Late night? Mia had a bad dream, didn't sleep much after. Something softened in Victoria's expression, brief as a blink. Is she all right? She's 8. Bad dreams come with the territory. Ethan found the Thompson file and opened it. I'll have these revisions to you in 20 minutes. Make it 15. And Ethan? He looked up. Get some coffee. Real coffee, not whatever burned sludge you make at home. My coffee is perfectly adequate. Your coffee could strip paint. Victoria turned back toward her office, then paused. There are fresh pastries in the break room. Take one. You're too thin. Before he could respond, she was gone, her door clicking shut with decisive finality. Ethan stared at the closed door for a moment, then shook his head and turned to his computer. Victoria Hale was many things. Brilliant, demanding, occasionally terrifying, but she was also, in her own brusque way, kind. She'd been the one to grant him flexible hours after Sarah died, to never question when he needed to leave early for Mia's school events, to pretend not to notice when he was barely holding it together during those first awful months. She was his boss, nothing more, nothing less. And that was exactly how it needed to stay. The morning blurred into a familiar rhythm of emails, phone calls, and meetings. Ethan moved through it all with the efficiency of long practice, anticipating Victoria's needs before she voiced them, smoothing over conflicts, managing schedules and egos with equal dexterity. This was what he was good at, being useful, being needed, being the person who made other people's lives easier. It was easier than having to think about his own. At 12:30, Victoria emerged from a meeting with the sales team looking particularly homicidal. Those absolute... She cut herself off, noticing Ethan on the phone. She waited, arms crossed, until he wrapped up the call with the printer. That bad? He asked. They want to cut the literary fiction line by 40%. 40%, Ethan, because it's not commercially viable enough. Victoria said the last 2 words with such venom that Ethan half expected them to sizzle. Never mind that we have 3 literary titles up for major awards this year, or that our literary authors often cross over into commercial success, or that some books have value beyond their immediate profit margins. Ethan had worked with Victoria long enough to know when she needed solutions versus when she needed to vent. This was definitely the latter. I assume you told them where they could put their 40%? In far more professional terms, yes. She sighed, some of the fury draining away, leaving behind simple exhaustion. I need lunch. Something with excessive amounts of carbohydrates and probably cheese. The Italian place on 5th? Read my mind. Victoria grabbed her coat. I'll be back by 2. If Brian from sales calls, tell him I've been raptured. Will do. She was halfway to the elevator when she turned back. Actually, Ethan, have you eaten? He glanced at his desk, where a half-eaten protein bar sat next to his keyboard. I'm good. Victoria's eyes narrowed. That bar has been sitting there since 9:30. I watched you take 2 bites. I've been busy. You're always busy. She made a decision, and Ethan recognized the look. It was the same one she got right before she eviscerated someone's manuscript or greenlit a risky acquisition. Come with me. What? Lunch. Come with me. You need to eat actual food, and I need someone to complain to who understands why I'm angry. Victoria, I have work, which will still be here in an hour. Come on, Ethan. Don't make me pull rank. It wasn't really a request, and they both knew it. Ethan saved his work, grabbed his jacket, and followed her to the elevator. The Italian place was crowded with the lunch rush, but Victoria had called ahead. Of course she had. And they were seated quickly at a booth in the back. Ethan ordered the first thing he saw on the menu, not really caring, while Victoria debated between 3 different pasta dishes before settling on carbonara. So, she said once the waiter had left, talk to me about something other than work. How's Mia? She's good, trying to convince me that pajamas count as fashion. Victoria's smile was genuine. Smart kid. Did it work? She wore actual clothes to school, so no. Ethan took a sip of water. But I have a feeling I haven't heard the last of that argument. She gets that stubbornness from you. Me? I'm not stubborn. Ethan, you once spent 6 hours reformatting a single contract because you didn't like the font. The font was Comic Sans. It was an affront to professionalism. You alphabetized my bookshelf by author's first name, which makes more sense than last name if you think about it. You color-coded my filing system, and you've kept it that way because it's superior. As Victoria laughed, and Ethan felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Pride, maybe, at being the cause of that laugh. It was a rare sound, Victoria's genuine laughter. Most people at Halstead only ever saw her sharp edges, her exacting standards, her refusal to tolerate mediocrity. They didn't see this, the woman who remembered that his daughter liked dinosaurs, who noticed when he skipped meals, who'd somehow become something close to a friend despite the professional boundaries between them. Their food arrived, and they ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then Victoria set down her fork and looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Can I ask you something personal? Ethan tensed slightly. Okay. When was the last time you did something for yourself? Not for Mia, not for work. For you. The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. When did you last do something just because you wanted to? See a movie, read a book for pleasure, go on a date. I read to Mia every night. That's for Mia. Victoria's voice was gentle, but firm. I'm talking about you, Ethan. Your life. Your happiness. He looked down at his plate, suddenly unable to meet her eyes. I'm happy. Are you? The question hung between them, heavy with implications Ethan didn't want to examine. Was he happy? He loved Mia. He was good at his job. He got through each day without falling apart. Wasn't that enough? I'm fine, he said finally. I have everything I need. Victoria studied him for a long moment, and Ethan had the uncomfortable feeling of being seen, really seen, in a way he usually managed to avoid. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, but Ethan, it's been 3 years. At some point, surviving isn't the same as living. He didn't know what to say to that. so he said nothing. They finished their meal talking about safer topics: the Thompson contract, the spring catalog, whether the Yankees had any chance this season. Victoria said yes, Ethan said absolutely not. But her words stayed with him as they walked back to the office, as he returned to his desk and his emails and the comfortable numbness of routine. Surviving isn't the same as living. The rest of the week passed in its usual rhythm. Monday bled into Tuesday, Tuesday into Wednesday. Wake up, get Mia ready, drop her at school, work, pick her up, dinner, homework, bedtime stories, sleep, or try to, then repeat. On Thursday evening, Ethan was heating up leftover pasta when his phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Need to ask you a favor. Nothing work-related. Are you free tomorrow evening? He stared at the message, puzzled. In 5 years, Victoria had never asked him for a personal favor. Professional ones, constantly. But personal? Should be. Mia has a sleepover at Amy's. What do you need? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Whatever she was typing was taking a while. It's embarrassing. I'll explain tomorrow. My place, 7 p.m.? I'll order dinner. Now he was definitely curious. But Victoria didn't embarrass easily, which meant this had to be something significant. Sure. Send me your address. Thanks, Ethan. I owe you one. He set the phone down, bemused, and went back to stirring pasta sauce. Mia wandered in from the living room, where she'd been building an elaborate tower out of blocks. Who was that? Victoria. My boss, remember? Mia's nose wrinkled. The one who calls during dinner? Ethan winced. That had happened exactly twice, both times during actual emergencies, but Mia had a long memory for inconveniences. She doesn't do that very often. She did it on my birthday. That was a work emergency, and I made her apologize to you, remember? She sent me a book. Mia climbed onto a kitchen chair, folding her legs underneath her. It was a good book, about a girl who found a dragon in her backyard. See? She's not so bad. Mia tilted her head, considering. I guess not. Is she nice? The question was so simple, so childlike, and Ethan found himself really thinking about it. Was Victoria nice? She was demanding, brilliant, occasionally terrifying, but she'd also been there for him during the worst period of his life, never pushing, never judging, just quietly making space for his grief. Yeah, he said finally. I think she is, in her own way. Good. Mia nodded, satisfied. You should only work for nice people, Daddy. I'll keep that in mind, Peanut. Now pasta's ready. Go wash your hands. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan stood in the shower longer than necessary, letting hot water beat against his shoulders while his mind wandered to Victoria's text. What could she possibly need help with that was embarrassing? Victoria Hale, who could stare down a board of directors without flinching, who negotiated contracts like a general planning a siege, who never showed weakness or uncertainty in any professional context. He was still wondering the next day at work. Victoria was her usual self, sharp, focused, driving her team with the kind of intensity that either inspired excellence or nervous breakdowns. She didn't mention their evening plans until 4:30, when she appeared at his desk with her coat already on. Don't forget, 7 o'clock. My address is in the text I sent. I remember. Should I bring anything? A flash of something, nervousness, crossed her face. Just yourself. And maybe an open mind. Before he could ask what that meant, she was gone. At 5:30, Ethan left to pick up Mia and drop her at Amy's house for the sleepover. Amy's mother, Jennifer, was a cheerful woman who always seemed to have everything under control, and Ethan felt the familiar pang of envy watching her juggle 3 kids and 2 dogs without breaking a sweat. You look tired, Jennifer observed as Mia and Amy ran upstairs, already shrieking with laughter. Do I? I can't imagine why. The sarcasm came out harsher than intended. Sorry. Long week. Honey, you're a single parent. Every week is a long week. Jennifer squeezed his arm. The girls will be fine. Go home, take a bath, order too much takeout, watch something mindless on TV, do something for you. There it was again, that phrase. Do something for yourself. Actually, I have plans, Ethan said, surprising himself. Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. Plans? Like, plans? Not like that, just helping my boss with something. Uh-huh. Jennifer's smile turned knowing. Is your boss single? Jennifer, I'm just saying, you're allowed to have a life, Ethan. You're allowed to be happy. I am happy. She gave him a look that said she didn't believe him for a second. Okay, sweetie, whatever you say, Mia's good until tomorrow at noon. Don't rush back. Ethan drove to Victoria's apartment in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes from the office, arriving exactly at 7. Her building was nicer than his, a restored brownstone with actual character and what looked like a working elevator. He climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on 3B. Victoria answered wearing jeans and a sweater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its usual severe bun. Ethan blinked. He'd literally never seen her in anything but professional attire. Stop staring, come in. She stepped aside and Ethan entered an apartment that was somehow exactly what he'd expected and nothing like it. Books everywhere, on shelves and stacks piled on every available surface. Modern furniture that looked expensive but comfortable. Art on the walls that he suspected was original. Everything precisely organized despite the abundance of stuff. Nice place. Thank you. Wine? Sure. She poured them each a glass of red and gestured to the couch. Food's on the way. Thai, if that's okay. Perfect. Ethan sat, cradling his wine glass, feeling distinctly out of place. This was weird, right? Being in his boss's apartment, drinking wine on a Friday night while Mia was at a sleepover? This felt like crossing some kind of line, even if he couldn't articulate exactly which one. Victoria sat in the chair across from him, and Ethan noticed she looked nervous. Actually, nervous. Victoria Hale, who'd once made a literary agent cry during a negotiation, was fidgeting with her wine glass. Okay, she said finally. So, here's the thing, and I need you to promise not to laugh. I promise nothing. She glared at him, but there was no heat in it. My sister set me up with a dating profile. Of all the things Ethan had been expecting, that wasn't even on the list. Your sister... What? A dating profile. On one of those apps. She created it without asking me, used photos from my Facebook, and wrote what she apparently thinks is an accurate description of my personality. Victoria took a large gulp of wine. It's mortifying. Ethan tried very hard not to smile. Why is this a favor for me? Because she made me promise to at least look at it and fix anything that was wrong. And I did. And it's all wrong. The whole thing is wrong. Victoria set down her glass with more force than necessary. I don't know how to do this, Ethan. Online dating, selling myself like a product, writing clever bio lines and choosing photos that make me look interesting but not trying too hard. It's exhausting and I haven't even started yet. So, you want me to help you fix your dating profile? Yes. No. Maybe. She stood up, pacing. You're good at this sort of thing. People like you. You know how to present things in the best light without being dishonest. That's literally what you do for a living. Make me look good. I don't make you look good. You are good. I just help communicate that. Exactly. That's what I need. Someone to help me communicate. She gestured vaguely at herself. Whatever this is. Ethan should have said no. This was definitely crossing a professional line. But Victoria looked so genuinely uncomfortable, so far out of her element, and he found himself saying, Okay, show me what we're working with. Relief flooded her face. Really? Really? But I'm going to need more wine. She grabbed her laptop while Ethan refilled their glasses. When she pulled up the dating profile, Ethan had to bite his lip to keep from laughing. The main photo showed Victoria at what looked like a company event, arms crossed, expression stern, looking like she was about to fire someone. The bio read, Successful publishing executive seeks partner who can keep up intellectually, must love books, debate, and long conversations about the Oxford comma. No time wasters. Oh no, Ethan said. I know. Victoria, you look like you're conducting a job interview for the position of boyfriend. I know. She covered her face with her hands. My sister thought I was powerful and confident. I think it makes me look like I'm recruiting for a cult. Ethan laughed. He couldn't help it. And after a moment, Victoria laughed too. That genuine sound he'd heard at lunch, and suddenly the weirdness of the situation evaporated. This wasn't boss and employee. This was two people, sharing wine, laughing at the absurdity of modern dating. Okay, Ethan said, setting down his wine and rolling up his sleeves metaphorically. First, we need different photos. Do you have any that show you actually enjoying yourself? Define enjoying myself. Smiling, laughing, looking like a human person rather than a corporate overlord. Victoria scrolled through her phone. This is harder than you'd think. They spent the next 20 minutes going through photos. Most were either too formal or, surprisingly, featured Victoria doing outdoor activities. Hiking, kayaking, at what looked like a beach bonfire. I didn't know you hiked, Ethan said, looking at a shot of her at a mountain summit, windswept and genuinely smiling. Every other weekend when the weather's good. She sounded almost defensive. I'm not just work, Ethan. He looked up at her, startled by something in her tone. I never thought you were. Their eyes held for a moment, and Ethan felt something shift in the air between them, a recognition of sorts, an acknowledgement that they maybe didn't know each other as well as they thought they did. The Thai food arrived, breaking the moment. They ate from containers spread across her coffee table, debating photo choices and bio language. Ethan suggested she soften her language. Victoria resisted, arguing that she shouldn't have to hide who she was. They compromised, creating something that was honest but approachable. What about hobbies? Ethan asked, typing. Besides hiking. I read, obviously. I collect vinyl records. I volunteer at a literacy program on weekends. Well, when I'm not hiking. Ethan stopped typing. You volunteer? Where? Library on 7th, teaching adult literacy classes. She said it casually, like it was nothing, but Ethan felt something warm bloom in his chest. Another layer revealed, another piece of Victoria that didn't fit the Ice Queen persona everyone at work assumed was the whole story. That's really great, he said quietly. Victoria shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. It's important. Everyone should be able to read. They worked for another hour, refining, editing, choosing photos that showed different facets of Victoria's life. The stern executive became a multi-dimensional person, someone who loved books and mountains and teaching, who had strong opinions and a dry sense of humor, who was looking for connection but not willing to compromise herself to find it. There, Ethan said finally, saving the changes. That's much better. Victoria leaned over to look at the screen, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. It is, isn't it? Thank you, Ethan. Really. No problem. Happy to help. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. Can I ask you something? And you can tell me it's none of my business. Okay. Have you thought about dating since Sarah? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ethan set down his wine glass carefully. No. Why not? Because he struggled for words. How did he explain that the idea of dating felt like betrayal? That he was barely keeping his head above water as it was? That opening his life to someone new felt impossible when he was still grieving what he'd lost? Because I can't, he said finally. I have Mia and work, and that's all I can handle right now. Victoria nodded slowly. And in 5 years? 10? Is that still going to be your answer? I don't think that far ahead. Maybe you should. She held up a hand before he could respond. I'm not trying to push, I see you, Ethan. Every day. You're so busy taking care of everyone else, me, Mia, everyone who needs you, that you've stopped taking care of yourself. At some point, that's going to break you. I'm fine. You keep saying that. I'm starting to think you're trying to convince yourself more than me. The words hit too close to home, and Ethan stood abruptly. I should go. It's getting late. Victoria stood too, and for a moment Ethan thought she was going to push, to dig deeper into wounds he wasn't ready to expose, but she just nodded. Thank you for tonight. I know this was weird. A little weird, he admitted. But good weird. I think your profile is going to do great. We'll see. If I get matched with any serial killers, I'm blaming you. Fair enough. She walked him to the door, and as Ethan stepped into the hallway, she called after him. Ethan? He turned. For what it's worth, I think you deserve to be happy too. Not just fine. happy. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and left, her words following him all the way home. That night, alone in his too-quiet apartment, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He thought about Victoria's dating profile, about her sister pushing her towards something new. He thought about surviving versus living. He thought about Sarah, about the life they'd planned that would never happen. He thought about Mia, about being the father she deserved while also being, what? A person? A man with his own needs and wants and dreams? When had he stopped having dreams? His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Victoria. Got my first match. A dentist who likes mystery novels and craft beer. Seems nice. Thank you again for tonight. Ethan stared at the message and felt something unexpected twist in his chest. Not quite jealousy. He had no right to that, no claim to Victoria beyond their professional relationship. But something. Some feeling he couldn't name, didn't want to examine. That's great, he texted back. Good luck. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Sleep was a long time coming. The following week, Victoria went on 3 dates. She told Ethan about them during their lunch breaks, which had somehow become a regular thing since that night at her apartment. The conversations felt different now, more personal, more real. Like they'd crossed some invisible threshold and couldn't quite find their way back. The dentist was nice, but boring. The accountant talked too much about his ex-wife. The teacher seemed promising until he revealed he'd never read a book for pleasure in his adult life, which Victoria declared an automatic disqualification. Maybe I'm too picky, she said over salads on Friday. Maybe you just know what you want, Ethan countered. Do I, though? I thought I wanted someone intellectual, confident, successful. But the dentist was all those things, and I was bored within 20 minutes. The accountant had an MBA from Harvard and wouldn't stop mentioning it. These should be my people, but they're not. What do you actually want? Victoria stabbed at her lettuce, thinking, I want someone who sees me. Not just the job or the resume, someone who makes me laugh, someone who challenges me but doesn't try to compete with me, someone who... She trailed off, looking frustrated. Someone who makes you feel understood, Ethan finished quietly. She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Yeah, that. The air between them felt charged suddenly, heavy with things unsaid. Ethan looked away first, focusing very intently on his sandwich. You'll find him, he said. You're amazing, Victoria. Anyone would be lucky. Am I, though? Because right now I feel like I'm failing at being a normal human person. Work I can do, this... She gestured vaguely. This is hard. It's supposed to be hard. Is it? Or have we just convinced ourselves that's true to feel better about how bad we are at it? Ethan laughed despite himself. Fair point. They finished lunch and walked back to the office together, their shoulders almost touching in the crowded sidewalk, not quite crossing that line but getting close. Ethan found himself hyper-aware of her presence, the click of her heels on concrete, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the small smile she gave when he said something that amused her. This was dangerous, he realized. This growing closeness, these lunches and conversations and moments of real connection. They'd crossed from boss and employee into something resembling friendship, and every instinct Ethan had told him that was a line they shouldn't have crossed. But he didn't want to go back. Monday morning, Ethan arrived at work to find Victoria's office door already closed, her voice raised in what sounded like a heated discussion. He settled at his desk, trying not to eavesdrop, but the walls were thin and Victoria wasn't bothering to moderate her volume. Absolutely not acceptable. Every right to make my own choices. Not about rights, it's about propriety. The door flew open and a woman stormed out, mid-40s, sharply dressed, with Victoria's same dark hair and strong features. She stopped when she saw Ethan, looking him up and down with unconcealed interest. You must be Ethan. Yes? The woman smiled. I can see why she spends so much time talking about you. Rachel. Victoria appeared in the doorway, her expression thunderous. Leave. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Rachel blew her a kiss. Think about what I said, Vic. Life's too short. She left, and Victoria stood there for a moment, visibly collecting herself. Then she looked at Ethan. That was my sister. The one who made the dating profile. I gathered. She has opinions. Many, many opinions, most of which she should keep to herself. Victoria rubbed her temples. I need coffee. Strong coffee. Maybe with whiskey. It's 9 a.m. Your point? Ethan stood. I'll go get us both coffee. The good stuff from the place on 5th. You're a lifesaver. She paused. What she said about me talking about you, ignore that. She's delusional. But Ethan noticed the slight pink in Victoria's cheeks as she turned away and felt that same unnamed feeling twist in his chest again. What was happening here? He got the coffee and they got through the day, then another day, then another. The weeks blurred together, work and lunch and conversations that went deeper than they should, Victoria's continued dating adventures that Ethan definitely wasn't thinking too much about. Mia asking why Daddy seemed distracted lately. I'm not distracted, Ethan told her one evening over dinner. You put orange juice in your coffee this morning. That was an accident. You're making that face. What face? The thinking face. Like when you're trying to solve a puzzle. Mia twirled spaghetti on her fork. What puzzle are you solving, Daddy? How I feel about my boss. Whether these feelings are real or just loneliness. Whether I'm ready to feel anything at all. Just work stuff, Peanut. Nothing important. But Mia gave him a look that said she didn't believe him, and Ethan realized with a start that his 8-year-old daughter could read him better than he could read himself. That Friday, Victoria canceled their usual lunch, citing back-to-back meetings. Ethan told himself the disappointment he felt was ridiculous. They'd managed for years without weekly lunches. He'd survive. But at 6 p.m., as he was packing up his desk, Victoria appeared. My last meeting ran over. I'm starving and everything nearby is closed. Want to grab dinner? My treat, for all the overtime you've been putting in. It was a bad idea. Ethan knew it was a bad idea. Lunch was one thing, but dinner felt different, felt more like, sure, he heard himself say, let me just text Mia's babysitter. They went to a small Italian place, different from their usual lunch spot. Quieter, more intimate. Candlelight on tables and soft music playing overhead. Ethan tried not to think about how this could be mistaken for a date. 4 more matches this week, Victoria said after they'd ordered. A lawyer, an architect, a college professor, and a guy who claimed to be a cryptocurrency entrepreneur, which I'm 90% sure means unemployed. How'd they go? The lawyer was actually nice, smart, funny, good conversation. She paused. I'm seeing him again tomorrow. Ethan's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. That's great. Is it? I can't tell anymore. We had a perfectly pleasant evening, and he asked me to dinner, and I said yes because that's what you're supposed to do when someone you like asks you out. But I don't know if I actually like him or if I'm just going through the motions. What does your gut say? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. My gut says I'm comparing everyone to someone I can't have, which is both stupid and unfair to everyone involved. The air shifted again, that same charged feeling from before, only stronger. Ethan's heart was beating too fast. Victoria. Ethan, I need to tell you something. She set down her wine glass, meeting his eyes directly. And I need you to let me finish before you say anything. Every muscle in Ethan's body tensed. Okay. I think... She stopped, started again. These past few weeks, working on the profile, the lunches, getting to know you as more than just my assistant, it's made me realize something. You're one of the best people I know. You're kind and patient and funny, and you see me in a way most people don't. And I find myself looking forward to our lunches more than I look forward to dates with men who probably look much better on paper, which is problematic for about 100 reasons, not least of which is that I'm your boss, and this is wildly inappropriate. Ethan couldn't breathe. The restaurant faded away until there was just Victoria, looking vulnerable in a way he'd never seen, saying things he'd maybe been feeling but hadn't let himself acknowledge. I'm not asking you for anything, she continued. I know you're not ready. I know you have Mia and a complicated life, and the last thing you need is your boss developing feelings for you. She laughed shakily. I needed to be honest about what this is, about what I'm feeling, because going on another date while pretending I'm not thinking about you the whole time feels dishonest. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan's mind raced, trying to catch up with what Victoria had just said, with what it meant, with what he felt about it. "Say something," Victoria whispered. "Please." "I don't—" Ethan's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. "I don't know what to say. The truth. Whatever it is. The truth." What was the truth? That he'd been looking forward to their lunches too? That some mornings he woke up thinking about her smile? That the idea of her with someone else made his chest ache in ways he hadn't felt since Sarah died? That he was terrified and exhilarated and completely unprepared for any of this? "I'm not ready," he said finally, and watched something crumble in Victoria's expression. "But not because I don't. It's not that I don't feel. I just can't. I have Mia, and I made a promise to myself after Sarah that I wouldn't bring someone into her life unless I was absolutely certain, and I don't know how to be certain about anything anymore." "I understand. And you're my boss. We work together. If this went wrong, I know. I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea." Victoria's smile was sad. "But I thought you deserved to know anyway, so you could make an informed decision about whatever this is." "What is this?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's just me projecting because you're kind and you helped me with the profile and I'm confusing gratitude with attraction. Or maybe it's something real. I can't tell anymore." Their food arrived and they both stared at their plates without eating. The restaurant that had felt intimate now felt suffocating. "I should go," Ethan said. "Mia's babysitter." "Of course." Victoria pulled out her wallet, but Ethan stopped her. "I've got it." "Ethan, please, let me." He paid for dinner they'd barely touched and walked Victoria to her car. The November air was cold, their breath misting in the streetlight. "I'm sorry," Victoria said. "This was selfish of me. I shouldn't have said anything." "No, I'm glad you did, I think." Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets. "I just need time to think, to figure out what I'm feeling. Take all the time you need. And if the answer is, my boss has lost her mind and we should pretend this conversation never happened, I'll understand." She unlocked her car. "See you Monday?" "Monday, yeah." He watched her drive away, then stood on the sidewalk for a long time, his mind spinning. Victoria had feelings for him. Real feelings. Not just professional appreciation or friendship, but actual romantic interest. And the terrifying part was that he might feel the same way. Somewhere between fixing her dating profile and shared lunches and conversations that went deeper than they should, something had grown. Something he wasn't ready for but couldn't quite deny. Ethan drove home in a daze. The babysitter left. Mia was already asleep, sprawled across her bed with her stuffed elephant clutched tight. He stood in her doorway, watching her breathe, and felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle over him like a blanket. He was all she had. He couldn't mess this up. He couldn't let his own loneliness or confusion or whatever he was feeling for Victoria compromise what Mia needed. But what did Mia need? A father who was present but empty? A father who survived but didn't live? At some point, surviving isn't the same as living. Ethan closed Mia's door softly and walked to his bedroom. The empty half of the bed mocked him, and he was suddenly furiously angry. At himself, at the universe, at the drunk driver who'd killed Sarah and left him here, stuck between grief and guilt and the terrifying possibility of feeling something new. He pulled out his phone and stared at Victoria's contact. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then he set the phone down and got ready for bed. This was impossible. All of it. He couldn't date his boss. He couldn't risk his job, his stability, everything Mia depended on. He couldn't open his heart to the possibility of losing someone again. He couldn't. But lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, Ethan kept hearing Victoria's voice. "I find myself looking forward to our lunches more than I look forward to dates with men who probably look much better on paper." He kept remembering the way she looked at him over dinner, vulnerable and honest. He kept feeling something warm and terrifying bloom in his chest, and he realized with dawning horror and hope that maybe he already had feelings for Victoria. Maybe he'd had them for a while and just hadn't let himself look at them directly. Maybe the reason he felt sick thinking about her dating other men wasn't friendly concern, but jealousy. Maybe the reason their lunches had become the best part of his week wasn't just the food. Maybe he wasn't as fine as he kept insisting he was. Ethan closed his eyes and thought about Monday, about seeing Victoria again, about having to navigate this new awareness of feelings he couldn't act on but could no longer deny. Somewhere in the quiet darkness, he thought he heard Sarah's voice, not sad or accusing, but gentle. Live, Ethan, please, live. He wasn't ready, but maybe, someday, he would be. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Ethan stood outside the office building, coffee in hand, trying to convince himself that he could walk through those doors and pretend Friday night never happened. That he could look at Victoria and not think about the vulnerability in her eyes when she'd confessed her feelings. That everything could go back to normal. He was a terrible liar, even to himself. The elevator ride to the 6th floor felt longer than usual. Each floor dinged past like a countdown to something Ethan wasn't ready for. When the doors finally opened, he forced his feet to move, one step at a time, until he reached his desk. Victoria's office door was closed. Her coat hung on the rack outside, so she was here, but the closed door sent a clear message. Not ready to talk. Ethan could respect that. He needed time too. He threw himself into work, emails, phone calls, scheduling meetings for the spring catalog launch. The familiar rhythm should have been soothing, but his eyes kept drifting to that closed door, wondering what Victoria was thinking, whether she regretted her honesty, whether this awkwardness would ever fade. At 10:30, the door opened. Victoria emerged looking impeccable as always, navy suit, hair in its customary bun, not a hint of the woman who'd laid her heart bare over Italian food. She didn't look at Ethan as she passed his desk. "I need the Sanderson contract revisions by noon," she said, her voice professionally neutral. "And can you move my 2 o'clock to Thursday? Something came up." "Of course." Ethan kept his own voice carefully even. "Anything else?" "That's all. Thank you." She disappeared down the hall toward the conference room, leaving Ethan staring at his computer screen without seeing it. So that's how it would be. Professional distance. Pretending nothing had changed. It was what he'd wanted, wasn't it? What he'd said he needed? Then why did it feel so wrong? The week crawled by in painful politeness. Victoria was cordial, efficient, and completely impersonal. Their lunches stopped. She ate at her desk or left the building alone. When they did interact, it was purely business. No jokes, no personal questions, none of the warmth that had developed between them over the past few months. By Wednesday, Ethan felt like he was losing his mind. "Is Victoria mad at you?" Mia asked that evening over dinner. She'd developed the annoying habit of reading his moods with alarming accuracy. "Why would you think that?" "You keep staring at your phone like you want to text her, but you're scared." "I'm not." Ethan set down his phone. "How do you even know about texting? You're 8. Amy has an older sister. She knows everything." Mia twirled spaghetti on her fork. "So is she mad?" "It's complicated, Peanut. Adults always say that when they don't want to explain." She gave him a look far too wise for her age. "Did you have a fight?" "Not exactly. Things are weird right now." "Why?" "Because..." Ethan stopped, unsure how to explain adult feelings to a child. "Sometimes friendships change, and you have to figure out what the new normal is." "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet." Mia considered this while chewing. "Mrs. Chen says change is good. She said it means you're growing." "Mrs. Chen is very wise." "She also said you look sad a lot." Mia's voice went softer. "Are you sad, Daddy?" The question hit him square in the chest. Ethan looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw concern in those brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and realized that his grief, his emotional shutdown, hadn't been as invisible as he'd hoped. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not because of you. You make me happy, Mia. Always." "I know, but you can be sad and happy at the same time." Amy's mom said that after her grandpa died. She was sad, but also happy remembering him. Mia set down her fork. "Maybe you're sad, happy about Mommy, and that's okay." Ethan's throat tightened. When had his little girl gotten so perceptive? "Yeah, maybe I am. And maybe Victoria makes you happy instead of sad happy, and that's confusing." How do you... You smile different when you talk about her, Mia said matter-of-factly. Like the way you smiled in the pictures with Mommy. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He sat there, speechless, while his 8-year-old daughter calmly delivered truths he'd been avoiding for weeks. I'm not ready for this conversation, he said finally. Okay, Daddy. Mia went back to her spaghetti. But when you are ready, I think you should tell Victoria you like her, because she probably doesn't know. She knows. Oh. Mia's eyes went wide. Did you tell her? She told me. And what did you say? That it's complicated. Mia sighed heavily, a sound of profound childhood exasperation. Adults are so weird. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. Yeah, we really are. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch with his phone in his hand, staring at Victoria's contact. He'd typed and deleted 3 different text messages, each one sounding worse than the last. Finally, he gave up and called instead. She answered on the 3rd ring. Ethan? Hey, is this a bad time? I'm just finishing some reading for tomorrow's acquisitions meeting. He heard the rustle of papers. What's up? The professional tone stung, but Ethan pushed through. I wanted to apologize. For this week. For the weirdness. You don't need to apologize. I'm the one who made things awkward. You were honest. That's not the same as awkward. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then what is it? It's brave. And I've been thinking about what you said. Ethan, you don't have to do this. You made your feelings clear. I respect that. I don't think I did, though. Make my feelings clear. Ethan stood, pacing his small living room. I said I wasn't ready, which is true, but I didn't tell you that I've been looking forward to our lunches too, that I think about you more than I probably should, that the idea of you dating other men makes me irrationally jealous, even though I have no right to feel that way. The silence on the other end was so complete that Ethan thought the call had dropped. Victoria? I'm here. Her voice sounded strained. What are you saying? I'm saying I have feelings for you too. I think I have for a while. I'm just terrified of what that means. Because of Mia. Because of everything. Because you're my boss and this could ruin my career. Because I haven't let myself feel anything for anyone in 3 years. And I don't know if I remember how. Because... He stopped, the real fear catching in his throat. Because what if I lose you too? Ethan. Victoria's voice was gentle now, the professional mask completely gone. You can't live your life afraid of loss. I know that's easier said than done, but it's true. I know. Logically, I know that. But logic doesn't make it less scary. So what do we do? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility and risk. Ethan thought about Mia's words. You should tell Victoria you like her, and about Victoria's confession at dinner, and about the fact that he'd been half alive for 3 years and maybe, just maybe, it was time to start living again. I don't know, he said honestly, but I think I want to figure it out. With you. If you're willing to be patient with me. I can do patient. He could hear the smile in her voice. Though I should warn you, I'm very bad at it. Ethan laughed, feeling lighter than he had in days. I've noticed. So what now? Now, I think we take it slow, really slow, and we figure out what this is without putting pressure on it to be anything specific. Slow, I can do slow. Victoria paused. Does this mean we can go back to having lunch together? Because eating at my desk has been depressing. Yeah, lunch sounds good. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. After they hung up, Ethan stood in his living room feeling unmoored and exhilarated in equal measure. He'd just agreed to... what? Date his boss? Explore feelings? He wasn't even sure what he'd committed to, only that it felt right in a way that terrified him. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. For the record, I'm terrified too, but I think you're worth being scared for. Ethan smiled and typed back, same. Thursday's lunch felt different, charged with new awareness, but also easier, like a weight had been lifted. They went to their usual Italian place and talked about everything except the elephant in the room. Work? Books. Victoria was considering for acquisition Mia's latest attempt to negotiate later bedtimes. Normal things. Safe things. But their hands brushed when they both reached for the check, and the contact sent electricity up Ethan's arm. Victoria's eyes met his, and for a moment the restaurant faded away. "Sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "Don't be." The lunches became regular again, every day, sometimes twice when they both needed a break from the office chaos. They didn't talk about what they were doing, didn't define it or analyze it. They just were, together, getting to know each other outside the boss-employee dynamic. Ethan learned that Victoria had wanted to be a writer before going into publishing, that she still kept journals full of half-finished stories she was too self-conscious to show anyone, that her parents had divorced when she was 12 and she'd used books as an escape, that her sister Rachel drove her crazy, but was also her best friend. Victoria learned that Ethan had met Sarah in college, that they'd had exactly 3 dates before he knew he wanted to marry her, that he'd minored in art history because he loved the stories paintings told, that he'd once wanted to open a bookstore cafe, but life had taken him in a different direction. "Do you regret it?" Victoria asked one afternoon as they walked back from lunch. "Not following that dream?" Ethan considered. "I don't think regret is the right word. Life happened. Mia, Sarah's death, needing stability. But sometimes I wonder what that alternate version of my life would look like. You could still do it. Open the bookstore. With what capital and when? I'm barely keeping up with work and being a single parent as it is." "Dreams don't have expiration dates, Ethan," he smiled. "Says the woman who works 60-hour weeks." "Exactly. I'm a cautionary tale, not a role model." Victoria stopped walking, turning to face him. "But seriously, don't give up on the things that make you happy. Life's too short and uncertain to only do what's practical." "Is this about the bookstore or something else?" "Maybe both." They stood there on the sidewalk, people flowing around them like water around stones. Victoria's hair had come loose from its bun, and Ethan had to resist the urge to reach out and tuck it behind her ear. "We should get back," he said, though he didn't move. "Probably." She didn't move either. The moment stretched, filled with tension and possibility. Then Victoria's phone rang, shattering the spell. She answered it, something about the Manchester deal falling through, and they walked back to the office in silence. But Ethan felt the shift. They were circling something, getting closer to an inevitable conclusion. The question was whether they'd have the courage to actually reach it. Friday afternoon, Victoria appeared at his desk, looking frustrated. "The Sanderson author wants to renegotiate their contract. Again, I need to review the numbers, which means staying late, which means missing my literacy class. You could reschedule. It's the last class before the winter break. I can't miss it." She sighed. "Unless, this is crazy, but would you want to come with me? The numbers can wait until tomorrow morning, and I could use a break from thinking about contract clauses." Ethan blinked. "You want me to come to your literacy class?" "Only if you want to. I just thought—" Victoria looked uncharacteristically uncertain. "I'd like you to see that part of my life, but no pressure." It was another line to cross, another step into each other's real worlds. Ethan should have said no. He should have maintained boundaries. Instead, he heard himself say, "Sure, I'd like that." The library on 7th was an old building, all marble and wood paneling, the kind of place that smelled like books and history. Victoria led him to a room on the 2nd floor where a dozen adults of varying ages sat around a large table, workbooks open in front of them. "Everyone, this is Ethan. He's going to observe today, if that's okay." The students greeted him warmly, and Ethan took a seat in the back while Victoria transformed. This wasn't the sharp-edged executive from the office. This was someone patient, encouraging, celebrating small victories with genuine joy. When a man in his 50s successfully read a paragraph he'd been struggling with, Victoria's smile was radiant. Ethan watched her work and felt something crack open in his chest. This was who Victoria really was beneath the professional armor. Someone who cared deeply, who gave her time freely to help others, who found meaning in small moments of progress. He was falling for her. Not just attracted, not just interested. Actually, genuinely falling. The realization was terrifying. After class, they walked to the parking lot together. Victoria seemed energized, talking about her students' progress, barely noticing when Ethan was quieter than usual. Thank you for coming, she said when they reached her car. I know it was probably boring. It wasn't boring. Ethan met her eyes. It was amazing. You're amazing. Victoria flushed, looking pleased and embarrassed. I just help people read. It's not exactly saving lives. Isn't it, though? You're giving them access to the world, to stories and information and possibilities they didn't have before. That matters. You really think so? I know so. They stood in the dimly lit parking lot, and Ethan was acutely aware of how close they were standing, how easy it would be to close the distance between them. Victoria seemed to be thinking the same thing, her eyes dropping to his lips before flickering back up. Ethan? She whispered. Yeah? What are we doing? I don't know, but I don't want to stop. Me neither. The kiss, when it happened, was soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. Victoria's lips were warm against his, and Ethan felt 3 years of grief and loneliness crack apart, making room for something new, something that felt like hope. When they pulled apart, both breathing harder, Victoria laughed shakily. So much for taking it slow. We made it almost 2 weeks. That's pretty good. Is it? She touched her fingers to her lips, looking dazed. I've wanted to do that for so long. How long? Honestly, since you reorganized my filing system and color-coded everything. Something about your attention to detail was very attractive. Ethan laughed, pulling her close again. That's the strangest thing anyone's ever found sexy about me. I'm a strange person. I'm beginning to notice. They kissed again, deeper this time, and Ethan let himself feel it. The want, the connection, the terrifying beauty of opening himself to someone new. When they finally separated, his heart was racing and his mind was spinning with implications he wasn't ready to consider. I should go, he said reluctantly. Mia's babysitter. I know. Victoria smiled, touching his cheek gently. Go. We'll talk tomorrow. Ethan drove home in a daze, his lips still tingling, his mind replaying the kiss over and over. He'd kissed someone who wasn't Sarah. For the first time in 3 years, he'd felt desire, connection, the electric possibility of new love. And he didn't feel guilty. The realization hit him as he pulled into his parking spot. He'd expected crushing guilt, Sarah's memory demanding to know how he could move on. But instead, he felt peace. Like maybe Sarah would have wanted this for him. Like maybe holding on to grief forever wasn't the same as honoring her memory. Mia was already asleep when he got home. Ethan paid the babysitter, then stood in Mia's doorway watching her sleep, the stuffed elephant clutched tight. I kissed someone today, he whispered into the darkness. Victoria, my boss. It was scary and wonderful, and I don't know what happens next. But I wanted you to know. I wanted her to know, too. He wasn't sure if he was talking to Mia or to Sarah's memory or to himself. Maybe all three. That night he slept better than he had in years. Saturday morning brought a text from Victoria. Can we talk? Coffee at the place on 5th? Ethan's stomach clenched with anxiety. The morning after conversation. The inevitable discussion about what last night meant and where they went from here. Part of him wanted to avoid it, to pretend they could keep floating in this undefined space forever. But that wasn't fair to either of them. He dropped Mia at Amy's house for a play date and met Victoria at the coffee shop. She was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. I got you the usual, she said as he sat down. Double espresso, no sugar. Thanks. Ethan wrapped his hands around the warm cup. So, we should probably talk about last night. Probably. Victoria looked nervous, a rare expression on her usually composed face. I want to start by saying I don't regret it. At all. But I also don't want to pressure you into something you're not ready for. I kissed you back, Victoria. Pretty enthusiastically, if I remember correctly. She smiled despite her nervousness. You did. But that doesn't mean you're ready for a relationship. Those can be separate things. Ethan took a sip of coffee, gathering his thoughts. Here's what I know. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. Being with you makes me happy in a way I haven't been in years. But I'm also terrified because I have Mia to think about, and a job I can't afford to lose, and a heart that's still healing from losing Sarah. That's a lot of buts. I know, but he smiled at the unintentional repetition. The thing is, All those fears don't change how I feel. They just mean we have to be careful, thoughtful. What does that look like? Practically. I think it means keeping this private for now. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I need to figure out how to tell Mia, and we need to navigate the whole boss-employee situation. Victoria nodded slowly. I can work with private. Though for the record, I hate sneaking around. It's not sneaking, it's being discreet. Semantics. She reached across the table, taking his hand. But I understand. Mia comes first, that's non-negotiable, and honestly, it's one of the things I love about you. The word love hung in the air between them, and Victoria's eyes widened slightly, like she hadn't meant to say it. I mean, not love, just, appreciate, admire. She was rambling, adorably flustered. I'm going to stop talking now. Victoria. Ethan squeezed her hand. Breathe. It's okay. I know what you meant. Do you? Yeah. And for what it's worth, I feel the same way. They sat there, hands linked across the table, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This could work. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be complications, but they could figure it out together. So we're doing this? Victoria asked. Actually trying? We're doing this. Any ground rules? Ethan thought about it. No bringing work into personal stuff. When we're together, we're just Ethan and Victoria, not boss and employee. And we tell each other when things get too complicated or overwhelming. Complete honesty. I can do that. Victoria's smile was soft. When do I get to officially meet Mia? When I figure out how to explain this to her without completely confusing her. She already knows you like me. She told you so. She's 8. She thinks she knows everything. In this case, she was right. They finished their coffee making plans. Nothing concrete, just the shape of what this relationship might look like. Quiet dinners when Mia was at sleepovers, lunches that weren't work-related, weekend hikes, since they both apparently loved the outdoors, small moments carved out from their complicated lives. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. At work, they were professional, maybe overly so, compensating for the secret they shared. But lunches became their escape, an hour where they could be themselves without pretense. And on weekends, when Mia was occupied, they found time for each other. Ethan learned that Victoria was terrible at mini-golf, but refused to quit until she won, that she sang off-key in the car and didn't care who heard, that she had a scar on her knee from falling off a bike when she was 7 and had been afraid of cycling ever since. Victoria learned that Ethan talked to himself when he cooked, narrating recipes like a cooking show host, that he could identify artists by their brushwork, a remnant of his art history minor, that he still wore his wedding ring on a chain around his neck, and that was okay. They didn't rush. Every kiss felt like a small miracle, every moment together something precious and fragile. Ethan was careful with Victoria's heart, and she was gentle with his grief. But 3 weeks into their secret relationship, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Victoria's sister Rachel showed up at the office unannounced. Ethan was at his desk when she breezed past, barely acknowledging him on her way to Victoria's office. "We need to talk," Rachel announced, closing the door behind her. Ethan tried not to eavesdrop, but the walls were thin and Rachel's voice carried. "You canceled lunch. Again. That's 3 times this month. I've been busy. You're always busy. But this is different. You're happy busy, not stressed busy, and you keep checking your phone and smiling at nothing." A pause. "Victoria, are you seeing someone?" Ethan's hands froze on his keyboard. "That's none of your business." "So that's a yes. Who is he? Is it that lawyer from the app? I knew he was perfect for you." "It's not him." "Then who?" Silence. Then Victoria's voice, quieter. "I'm not discussing this with you." "Oh my God, it's someone you work with. Rachel. It's Ethan, isn't it?" Ethan's heart stopped. He should get up, walk away, give them privacy. But he couldn't move. "How did you—" "Because you talk about him constantly. And that day I came here, the way you two looked at each other, I knew something was happening. I just didn't think you'd actually act on it." Rachel's voice softened. "Vic, he's your employee. This is complicated." "You think I don't know that?" "Does he feel the same way?" "Yes. We're Figuring it out. Have you thought about what happens if this goes wrong? Your job, his job, the power dynamic. Of course I've thought about it. I think about it constantly. But Rachel, Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I really care about him. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time. And yes, it's complicated and potentially career-ending and probably the worst decision I've ever made. But I can't seem to stop. Ethan sat frozen at his desk, processing what he'd just heard. Victoria had basically admitted to her sister that she was in love with him, that this was serious, not just a casual thing she could walk away from. The weight of responsibility settled over him like a blanket. This wasn't just about his feelings anymore. Victoria was risking her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked for. And for what? For him? A widowed single father who was still figuring out how to function without falling apart? He wasn't worth that risk. The thought came unbidden and unwelcome, but Ethan couldn't shake it. What could he possibly offer Victoria that was worth jeopardizing her entire professional life? The office door opened and Rachel emerged, spotting Ethan at his desk. She walked over, studying him with unsettling intensity. "You hurt her, and I will make your life hell," she said conversationally. "Just so we're clear, I don't want to hurt her." "Nobody ever does, but people get hurt anyway." Rachel's expression softened slightly. "She really cares about you, Ethan. Be careful with that." After Rachel left, Ethan sat at his desk trying to work and failing miserably. Around 4, Victoria appeared, leaning against his desk with her arms crossed. "I assume you heard all of that." "Most of it. Thin walls." "I'm sorry. Rachel has no filter and boundary issues." "It's okay." Ethan saved his document without looking at her. "She's not wrong, though. This is complicated." "Are you having second thoughts?" He wanted to say no. He wanted to reassure her that Rachel's concerns meant nothing, that they could figure this out. But the doubt had taken root, and he couldn't quite shake it. He finally looked up at her. "What if we're making a mistake? What if this ruins everything?" Victoria's expression shuddered. "Is that really what you think?" "I think we haven't really considered all the consequences. Your career, my job, what happens if HR finds out? So what are you saying? You want to stop?" "I'm saying maybe we need to slow down. Really think about whether this is worth the risk." The hurt in Victoria's eyes was like a physical blow. "I see. And have you thought about it?" "I'm trying to, because I have. I've thought about nothing else for weeks. And my conclusion is that you're worth it. Whatever the risk, whatever the consequences, you're worth it to me." Her voice wavered. "But if I'm not worth it to you, then maybe Rachel's right, and we should stop now before someone actually gets hurt." "Victoria, that's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Ethan?" He didn't have a good answer. His fears and doubts tangled together until he couldn't separate rational concern from self-sabotage. "I need time," he said finally, "to think." Victoria nodded stiffly. "Take all the time you need. Let me know when you figure out what you want." She walked back to her office and closed the door with careful precision. Ethan sat there feeling like he'd just made a terrible mistake, but not knowing how to fix it. That evening, he picked up Mia from school in a fog. She chattered about her day, something about a science project and Amy getting in trouble for talking during quiet time, but Ethan could barely focus. "Daddy, are you listening?" "Sorry, Peanut. Say that again?" Mia gave him a look. "You're thinking about Victoria again." "How do you get this look? Like you're trying to solve a really hard math problem." She kicked her feet against the car seat. "Did you guys have another fight?" "Not a fight exactly, just a disagreement about what we're doing." "Are you still scared?" The question was so direct, so insightful, that Ethan actually pulled the car over. He turned to look at his daughter, this wise little person who saw right through him. "Yeah," he admitted, "I'm still scared." "Of what?" "Of messing this up, of making the wrong choice, of—" He stopped, not wanting to burden her with his fears about loss and grief. But Mia understood anyway. "You're scared something bad will happen, like with Mommy." Ethan's throat tightened. "Maybe. But Daddy, bad things can happen anyway. Like Amy's dad got really sick last year, but he got better. And Mrs. Chen's cat died, but now she has a new cat. Bad stuff happens, but good stuff happens too. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always listen. Mia reached over and patted his hand. I think you should tell Victoria you're sorry for being scared, because she's probably scared too, but she still wants to try. That's brave, out of the mouths of babes. Ethan squeezed Mia's hand, feeling emotion clog his throat. You're right, she is brave, and I've been a coward. You're not a coward, Daddy. You're just careful, but sometimes being too careful means you miss the good stuff. Ethan pulled back onto the road, his daughter's words echoing in his head. She was right. He'd been so focused on protecting himself from potential pain that he'd forgotten how to be open to joy. Victoria had offered him exactly that, joy, connection, the possibility of love, and he'd thrown it back in her face because he was too scared to take the risk. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan called Victoria. She answered but didn't speak, waiting for him to fill the silence. I'm sorry, he said, for this afternoon, for questioning us, for being scared. Fear isn't the problem, Ethan. It's what you do with it. I know, and I've been letting it control me. But Mia helped me see something today. What's that? That playing it safe doesn't actually keep you safe. It just keeps you from living. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to try. With you. Even if it's scary. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Are you sure? Because I can't keep having this conversation every time you get scared. I need to know you're in this, really in this, or I need to protect myself and walk away now. I'm in this, Ethan said firmly. All in. No more second guessing, no more pulling away when it gets hard. I want to be with you, Victoria. I want to figure this out together. Even with all the complications? Especially with all the complications, because you're worth it. We're worth it. He heard her breath catch. Okay. Okay then. We do this for real. For real, Ethan confirmed. No more hiding from what this is. They talked for another hour, making plans, setting real boundaries about work and their personal lives, discussing how and when to tell Mia officially. It felt different from their previous conversations, more grounded, more certain, like they'd crossed some invisible threshold and there was no going back. And Ethan found that he didn't want to go back. For the first time in 3 years, he was choosing to move forward, to build something new instead of just surviving what remained. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was living. The following Saturday, Ethan stood in Victoria's kitchen, watching her attempt to make pancakes. She'd insisted she could cook, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. The first batch had burned. The second batch was somehow both raw in the middle and crispy on the edges. The third batch was currently smoking in the pan. You're enjoying this, Victoria accused, catching his expression. I'm not enjoying watching you struggle, Ethan said diplomatically. I'm enjoying seeing this side of you, the woman who can negotiate million-dollar deals but can't flip a pancake. I can flip a pancake just fine. The stove is clearly defective. Your stove is brand new. Then it's user error on the manufacturer's part for making the controls too complicated. She poked at the smoking pancake with a spatula. How does Mia like her pancakes? The casual mention of his daughter made Ethan's heart skip. They'd been officially together for 2 weeks now, and Victoria had started asking questions about Mia more frequently. Not pushing, just expressing genuine interest in the most important person in Ethan's life. Chocolate chips and slightly undercooked, he said, which apparently runs in the family. Are you saying you like your pancakes undercooked? I'm saying I've learned to appreciate them, however they come. Victoria abandoned the smoking pan and turned to face him, flour somehow smudged on her cheek despite the mix being pre-made. When do I get to meet her? Officially, I mean, not just passing by your desk at work. Ethan had known this question was coming. They'd talked about it on the phone in abstract terms, but now Victoria was asking for something concrete, a timeline, a commitment to bringing her into Mia's life. Soon, he said, then at her expression, I mean it. I want you to meet her. I'm just trying to figure out how to explain this in a way that makes sense to an 8-year-old. What have you told her so far? That you're important to me, that we're friends who might become more than friends. Ethan stepped closer. taking the spatula from Victoria's hand and setting it aside. She already likes you, you know. She talks about the dragon book you sent her all the time. The one I sent after calling during her birthday dinner? She's very forgiving, unlike her father, who holds grudges about everything. Victoria smiled, wrapping her arms around his waist. Name one grudge you're holding. You reorganized my filing system without asking. That was 3 years ago, and it needed reorganizing. You scheduled a meeting during my lunch break twice. Ethan, that's literally my job. You still haven't admitted that my coffee is perfectly adequate. I will die before I admit that travesty is adequate. She kissed him softly. But I appreciate your dedication to being right about meaningless things. They stood like that for a moment, wrapped in each other, the burned pancakes forgotten. These quiet moments had become Ethan's favorite part of their relationship, the easy intimacy of Sunday mornings, the way Victoria fit perfectly against his chest, the sense of peace that settled over him when they were alone together. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Mia, checking in from Amy's house where she was spending the weekend. Can I stay for dinner too? Amy's mom is making tacos. Ethan showed Victoria the text. Looks like I'm free for dinner after all. Lucky me. Victoria grabbed her phone. I'm ordering from the Thai place. We are not eating my pancakes. Probably wise. While Victoria ordered food, Ethan texted Mia back giving permission, then wandered to the living room. Victoria's apartment had become familiar over the past few weeks. The organized chaos of books, the art she'd collected over the years. The small details that revealed who she was beneath the professional exterior. A framed photo of her with Rachel at some beach. A shelf dedicated entirely to poetry. A vinyl record player that actually worked, surrounded by albums sorted by genre. He was studying her music collection when Victoria joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Looking for something to judge me about? Always. Ethan pulled out an album. Fleetwood Mac. Cliché, but respectable. Says the man who still listens to whatever was popular when he was in high school. That's called nostalgia. It's different. It's called being stuck in the past. The words were teasing, but they hit closer to home than Victoria probably intended. Ethan turned in her arms, studying her face. Is that what you think? That I'm stuck? Victoria's expression softened. I think you're healing. There's a difference. But Ethan, at some point you have to decide if you're going to keep one foot in the past or fully step into the present. I'm here, aren't I? With you? You are. And I'm grateful for that. But sometimes I wonder if part of you is still holding back, waiting for permission that's never going to come. Permission from who? From Sarah. From yourself. From whoever you think gets to decide when you're allowed to be happy again. The doorbell rang before Ethan could respond. Their food had arrived. They ate on the couch, Victoria's feet tucked under her, a documentary about book conservation playing on the TV that neither of them was really watching. Can I ask you something? Ethan said during a lull in conversation. Always. Why me? You could be with anyone, someone without all my baggage, without a kid, without a dead wife haunting everything. Victoria set down her pad thai, giving him her full attention. You want an honest answer? Please. Because you're kind. Because you see people, really see them, in a way most people don't. Because you made me laugh during the worst acquisition meeting of my career by leaving a note on my desk that said, "You've got this, and if not, there's always arson." She smiled at the memory. Because you care about things that matter. Because you're a wonderful father. Because when you look at me, I feel like I'm enough exactly as I am, without having to perform or prove anything. Ethan's throat tightened. Victoria. And yes, you have baggage. Everyone does. But Ethan, your baggage includes being a devoted father and honoring the memory of someone you loved. Those aren't flaws. They're part of what makes you who you are. She reached for his hand. I'm not trying to compete with Sarah's memory. I'm trying to build something new with you. And if you can't do that, if you're always going to be comparing what we have to what you lost, then we need to talk about that. I'm not comparing, or I'm trying not to. Ethan squeezed her hand. It's just hard sometimes. I spent 3 years building a life around grief, and now I'm trying to build one around hope, and I don't always know how to do that. So we figure it out together. That's what this is. Victoria moved closer. But I need you to be honest with me. If this is too much, if you're not ready, I'd rather know now than 6 months from now when we're both in too deep. We're already in too deep, Ethan said quietly. At least I am. Yeah? Yeah, I love you, Victoria. I think I have for a while. I just wasn't ready to say it. The words hung in the air between them, and Ethan watched emotions flicker across Victoria's face. Surprise, joy, something that looked like relief. Say it again, she whispered. I love you. Your terrible pancakes, your color-coded filing systems, your refusal to admit when you're wrong, all of it. Victoria kissed him, and Ethan felt something click into place. This was real. This was happening. He was building a new life, not replacing the old one, but expanding to make room for something different. I love you too, Victoria said against his lips, in case that wasn't obvious. It wasn't obvious at all. You're very mysterious. She laughed, pulling him closer, and they spent the rest of the evening tangled on her couch, talking and kissing and planning a future that finally felt possible. Monday at work was torture. Ethan wanted to touch Victoria every time she walked past his desk, wanted to kiss her in the elevator, wanted to tell everyone that this brilliant, infuriating woman was his. But they maintained their professional distance, keeping their secret despite how much harder it had become. During lunch, they snuck away to their usual spot, and Victoria broached the subject that had been hanging over them. We need to talk about telling people. About us. Ethan's stomach clenched. At work? Eventually, yes. I know we said we'd keep it private, but Ethan, I'm in love with you. At some point, people are going to notice, and I'd rather control that narrative than have it become office gossip. What about HR? The fraternization policy? I checked. There's no explicit rule against relationships between employees at different levels, but there are guidelines about conflicts of interest and the appearance of favoritism, which means we either need to be very careful or... She paused. One of us needs to move to a different department. The solution was obvious, and they both knew it. Ethan was the assistant. Victoria was the editorial director. If anyone was moving, it would be him. I could transfer to marketing, Ethan said slowly. They've been understaffed for months. I heard they're looking for a senior coordinator. That would be a lateral move at best. You'd be wasted in marketing. Then what are you suggesting? Victoria looked uncomfortable. There's an operations manager position opening up in January. It's a promotion, better pay, different chain of command. You'd be perfect for it. You want me to apply for a promotion so we can date openly? I want you to apply for a promotion because you deserve it. The fact that it solves our current problem is just a bonus. Ethan pushed food around his plate, thinking. A promotion would mean more money, something he desperately needed with Mia getting older and expenses piling up. It would mean new challenges, a chance to grow beyond being someone's assistant. But it also felt like Victoria was managing his career, making decisions for him, even if she had good intentions. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I'm asking. But the conversation left Ethan unsettled. That afternoon, as he filed paperwork and scheduled Victoria's meetings, he found himself wondering if he'd stayed in this position too long out of fear of change. Had grief made him so risk-averse that he'd stopped pursuing growth? Or was Victoria pushing him toward something he wasn't ready for? The uncertainty followed him home. Mia noticed immediately. You're making the thinking face again, she announced over dinner. Sorry, Peanut. Work stuff. Is it about Victoria? How did you... Everything's about Victoria lately. Mia didn't sound upset, just matter of fact. Are you going to tell me what's really happening? Because I'm not a baby daddy. I know you like her like her. Ethan set down his fork, his heart racing. This was it. The moment he'd been avoiding and anticipating in equal measure. You're right. I do like her. How do you feel about that? Mia shrugged, but Ethan could see the calculation behind her eyes. Is she going to be my new mom? No, nobody's replacing your mom, Mia, ever. But Victoria is someone important to me, someone I care about a lot. And if you're okay with it, I'd like you to spend some time with her, really get to know her. Will she come to my school stuff? If you want her to, maybe, eventually. Will she move in with us? Whoa, slow down. We're not there yet. Right now we're just dating, spending time together, seeing if this works. Mia studied him with those serious eyes. Do you love her? The The question was so direct that Ethan almost laughed, but his daughter deserved honesty. Yes, I do. Does she love you? She says she does. Good. Mia went back to her spaghetti like they'd just discussed the weather. Because you've been happier lately, not sad happy, real happy, and I like that. Ethan felt emotion clog his throat. You're okay with this? Really? Daddy, I just want you to not be lonely anymore, and if Victoria makes you not lonely, then I like her. She paused. But if she's mean to you or to me, I'm going to put a frog in her purse. Where would you even get a frog? Amy knows a guy. Ethan laughed, pulling Mia into a hug. I love you, Peanut, so much. Love you too, Daddy. Can Victoria come to my birthday party next month? If she's free, I'm sure she'd love to. Cool, Amy's going to be so jealous. Her dad's girlfriend is boring. That weekend, Ethan invited Victoria over for an official introduction. He'd prepared Mia extensively, reminding her to be polite, to use her manners, to please not mention the frog threat. Mia had listened with exaggerated patience, then asked if she could wear her dinosaur pajamas because they're technically clothes, Daddy. Victoria arrived at noon bearing gifts, a new book for Mia and fancy coffee for Ethan. She looked nervous, which was endearing given that she normally faced down literary agents and angry authors without flinching. Hi, she said when Ethan opened the door. I brought things. Is that okay? I wasn't sure of the protocol for meeting your girlfriend's kid. Ex-boyfriend's kid? Current boyfriend's? I'm going to stop talking now. Breathe, Ethan said, kissing her cheek. She's 8, not a mob boss. I've negotiated with mob bosses. They're less intimidating than children. Mia appeared in the hallway, wearing regular clothes but carrying her stuffed elephant. She studied Victoria with frank curiosity. You're prettier than your work picture, Mia announced. Victoria blinked. Thank you, I think. Daddy says you're really smart and you like books, and you're going to come to my birthday party. I would love to come to your birthday party. Victoria held out the wrapped book. This is for you. Your dad mentioned you liked the dragon book I sent before. Mia tore into the wrapping with enthusiasm. Her eyes went wide when she saw the title. No way! This is the next one in the series. Daddy wouldn't buy it for me because he said we had too many books already. There's no such thing as too many books, Victoria said seriously. That's a fundamental truth of the universe. See, Daddy? Victoria gets it. Ethan watched them bond over book philosophy and felt something warm expand in his chest. This was happening. His two favorite people were meeting, and it wasn't awkward or forced. It was natural, easy. They spent the afternoon at the park. Victoria pushed Mia on the swings while Ethan set up a picnic. He watched them together, Victoria's laughter genuine as Mia demanded to go higher, Mia's excitement palpable as she described her elaborate playground games. By the time they settled on the blanket to eat, Mia had apparently decided Victoria was acceptable. Can I ask you something? Mia said through a mouthful of sandwich. Sure, Victoria said. Are you going to marry my dad? Ethan choked on his water. Victoria's eyes went wide. They stared at each other in panic while Mia waited expectantly. We haven't really, Victoria stammered. It's too soon for that conversation, Peanut, Ethan managed. But you love each other, right? That's what people do when they love each other. They get married. Sometimes, Victoria said carefully, but sometimes people date for a long time first, to make sure they're compatible, to build a strong foundation. How long is a long time? However long it takes. Victoria glanced at Ethan. There's no rush. The important thing is that we care about each other and about you. Mia seemed to accept this, turning her attention to her apple slices. But Ethan noticed Victoria's hand trembling slightly as she reached for her drink. Marriage. They'd been together less than a month, and his daughter was already planning their wedding. Later, after they'd dropped Mia at Amy's for a play date and returned to Ethan's apartment, Victoria collapsed on his couch. That was terrifying. You survived, Ethan said, sitting beside her. Barely. She's very direct. She gets that from her mother. He pulled Victoria close. So, marriage, huh? Ethan Cole, if you propose to me right now, I will say no out of principle. Noted. But for the record, I wasn't proposing, just acknowledging that Mia apparently has our entire future planned out. Victoria turned to face him. And how do you feel about that? Our future? Honestly? Terrified and hopeful in equal measure. You? Same. But Ethan, I meant what I said to Mia. There's no rush. We figure this out at our own pace, not because your 8-year-old thinks we should be married already. Agreed. Ethan kissed her. Though for what it's worth, she really likes you. She told me in the car that you're pretty cool for a grown-up. High praise. The highest. Is it? She also asked if you knew where to buy frogs, which I'm choosing to ignore. They spent the rest of the evening tangled together on Ethan's worn couch, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to, talking about everything and nothing. It felt domestic, real, like this could actually work. But Monday brought complications. Ethan was at his desk when Margaret from HR appeared. She was a severe woman in her 50s, all sharp angles and no-nonsense efficiency. Ethan, do you have a moment? His stomach dropped. Of course. They went to a conference room and Margaret closed the door. She opened a folder, studying its contents before looking at him. I need to ask you about your relationship with Victoria Hale. Ethan's mouth went dry. My relationship? We've received some concerns from staff about potential favoritism, special treatment, altered schedules, frequent private meetings. I'm required to investigate. Margaret's expression was neutral. So I'm asking directly, are you in a romantic relationship with Ms. Hale? 1,000 responses flashed through Ethan's mind. Denial would be easiest, but it would also be dishonest, and he'd promised Victoria complete honesty about everything. Yes, he said quietly. We are. Margaret nodded, making a note. How long has this been going on? Officially, about a month, but there were feelings before that. And Ms. Hale is aware that this creates a conflict of interest given the power dynamic between you? We're both aware. We've discussed transferring to different departments to address it. That would be advisable. Margaret closed her folder. Mr. Cole, I'm not here to judge your personal life, but you must understand that this relationship puts both of you in a difficult position. Ms. Hale supervises your performance reviews, your salary, your schedule. Any decisions she makes regarding you can now be questioned. Any negative performance feedback could be seen as personal. Any positive feedback could be seen as favoritism. I understand. Do you? Because this could damage both your careers, particularly hers. Margaret's expression softened slightly. I know Victoria. She's brilliant and fair, but this industry is still very much a boys' club, and they'll use any ammunition they can find to undermine a woman in power. A relationship with her subordinate? That's ammunition. The weight of what she was saying settled over Ethan like a heavy blanket. He'd been so focused on his own fears, losing his job, failing Mia, getting hurt again, that he hadn't fully considered what this cost Victoria. Her reputation, her credibility, everything she'd worked years to build. What do we do? He asked. You transfer, as soon as possible. I'll fast-track the operations manager position. You're qualified, and it would remove the direct reporting relationship. Margaret stood. I'll keep this conversation confidential for now. But Ethan, be discreet, at least until the transfer is finalized. After she left, Ethan sat alone in the conference room, his mind racing. He needed to tell Victoria. But she was in meetings all afternoon, and this wasn't a conversation for the office. He texted her, We need to talk tonight. HR knows. Her response came immediately. My place. 7 p.m. The rest of the day passed in a fog. Ethan went through the motions of work while his mind spun with implications and consequences. By the time he picked up Mia from school, he felt physically ill. You okay, Daddy? Mia asked in the car. You look green. Just a long day, Peanut. Is it about Victoria? Why do you always assume everything is about Victoria? Because everything is about Victoria lately. Mia kicked her feet against the seat. Did something bad happen? Ethan didn't want to lie to her. Something complicated happened, but I'm going to fix it. How? I don't know yet. After dropping Mia with the babysitter, Ethan drove to Victoria's apartment. She answered the door still in her work clothes, her face pale. Rachel called, she said without preamble. Someone from legal contacted her firm about potential conflicts of interest. Word is spreading, Ethan. People are talking. Margaret pulled me in today, asking direct questions. What did you tell her? The truth, that we're together, that we know it's complicated. Ethan followed her inside. She recommended I transfer to operations, fast-track the application. Victoria nodded, her expression unreadable. That makes sense. Does it? Because it feels like we're being forced to make decisions based on other people's opinions rather than what we actually want. What we want isn't the issue, it's what's practical. What protects both of us professionally. So what? Apply for a job I'm not sure I want because it makes our relationship more acceptable? Do you not want the job? Victoria's voice rose slightly. Because you said you'd think about it. I thought we'd discuss this. You discussed it. You decided what was best and expected me to fall in line. That's not fair. Isn't it? You're my boss, Victoria. Even in our personal relationship, you're used to being in charge, making decisions, controlling outcomes. But this isn't a business deal you can negotiate. Victoria's face flushed. I'm trying to protect us. Both of us. By making unilateral decisions about my career? By being realistic about our options? She paced the living room, agitated. Ethan, I could lose everything over this. My job, my reputation, my credibility in an industry that already questions every decision I make because I'm a woman. So yes, I'm trying to find solutions. I'm sorry if that seems controlling. The anger drained from Ethan as quickly as it had come. He'd been so caught up in his own feelings that he'd forgotten Victoria's perspective, the weight she was carrying, the risks she was taking just to be with him. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You're right. I'm being defensive. No, you're being honest, which is what we promised each other. Victoria stopped pacing. But Ethan, we need to make a decision. Together. Do we fight for this relationship despite the complications, or do we acknowledge that maybe the timing is wrong and we're not ready for what this requires? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. This was it, the moment where they either committed fully or walked away while they still could. Ethan thought about Mia asking if Victoria would marry him, about the domestic ease of their afternoon at the park, about the way Victoria made him feel alive in ways he hadn't felt in years, about the future he was finally allowing himself to imagine. I fight, he said. For us. For this. Whatever it takes. Victoria's eyes welled with tears. Yeah? Yeah, I'll apply for the operations position. Not because you're telling me to, but because I want a future with you. And if that means making career changes, then that's what I'll do. She crossed the room and kissed him, her tears wet against his cheeks. I love you so much. I'm sorry for being pushy. I love you too, and I'm sorry for being stubborn. They held each other, and Ethan felt the tension that had been building all day finally release. They could do this, together. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. There's something else, Victoria said after a while. Something I should have told you before. Ethan pulled back to look at her. What? When we filled out your dating profile, that night when this all started, I lied about something. About what? Victoria took a deep breath. I didn't ask you to help because I didn't know how to fix it. I asked because I wanted an excuse to spend time with you, to get to know you outside of work. The profile was terrible, yes, but I could have fixed it myself. I wanted you there. Ethan stared at her, processing this. So this whole thing, our lunches, getting to know each other, you planned it? Not exactly planned. More hoped for? I had feelings for you before that night, Ethan. I just didn't know how to act on them without making things weird. The profile gave me an excuse. Why didn't you just ask me out? Because you're my employee. Because you were grieving. Because the power dynamic made it impossible for me to make the first move without it being inappropriate. Victoria looked miserable. I'm sorry. I should have been honest from the start. Ethan should have been angry, should have felt manipulated, but instead he found himself laughing. What's so funny? You, me. This whole ridiculous situation. He pulled her close. Victoria, I don't care that you engineered an excuse to spend time with me. If anything, I'm relieved. I thought I was going crazy, developing feelings for my boss. At least now I know you were feeling it too. You're not mad? I'm not mad. though I reserve the right to bring this up every time you accuse me of being calculating. She swatted his arm, smiling through her tears. Deal. They spent the rest of the evening on her couch, talking through their plan. Ethan would apply for operations. They'd be discreet at work until the transfer went through. They'd face whatever gossip came together, and they'd keep building toward a future that was starting to look more real every day. When Ethan finally left around midnight, he felt lighter. Scared, yes. Uncertain about what came next, absolutely. But also hopeful. For the first time since Sarah died, he was genuinely excited about the future. He was halfway home when his phone rang. Victoria. Did I forget something? He answered. No, She paused. I needed to hear your voice one more time before I went to sleep. Is that pathetic? If it is, then we're both pathetic. I was literally about to call you. We're disgusting. Absolutely revolting. Victoria laughed. Get home safe. Text me when you're there? Always. After hanging up, Ethan drove through quiet streets, his mind replaying the evening. The fight. The resolution. Victoria's confession about the dating profile. It all pointed to one undeniable truth. This woman loved him. Fully, messily, inconveniently loved him. And he loved her back with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified him. He thought about what Mia had asked, whether Victoria would be her new mom. The answer was no. Nobody would replace Sarah. But maybe Victoria could be something different. A partner. A co-parent eventually. Someone who loved both Ethan and his daughter for exactly who they were. The next few weeks passed in a blur of applications, interviews, and waiting. The operations position was perfect for Ethan, utilizing his organizational skills and attention to detail while giving him more autonomy and better pay. The interview panel seemed impressed, though Ethan couldn't shake the paranoia that everyone knew about his relationship with Victoria and was judging him for it. At work, they were scrupulously professional. No lingering glances, no accidental touches, no lunches together. It was torture. But outside work, they made up for it. Dinners at Victoria's place. Weekends with Mia, who'd decided Victoria was pretty okay and had started inviting her to everything. Quiet moments that felt like building a foundation for something lasting. 3 weeks after his interview, Ethan got the call. He'd gotten the job. He'd start after the new year, giving HR time to transition his responsibilities and remove any appearance of impropriety. He told Victoria over the phone, and her relief was palpable. Congratulations! You earned this, Ethan. You know that, right? This has nothing to do with me. I know, but it doesn't hurt that my very impressive boss wrote me a glowing recommendation. I recused myself from the hiring decision entirely. Margaret made sure of it. Victoria paused. But hypothetically, if I had written a recommendation, it would have been accurate. You're brilliant at what you do. Careful, compliments like that might go to my head. Good, your head could use some ego. You're far too modest. That weekend, they celebrated with dinner at a nice restaurant, their first real date in public, not hiding in corners or worrying about who might see them. Ethan wore a suit. Victoria wore a dress that made his breath catch. They held hands across the table and didn't care who noticed. This feels different, Victoria said, looking around the restaurant. Being out, not hiding. Good different or scary different? Both. But mostly good. She squeezed his hand. I can't wait until January when we don't have to pretend at work anymore. Me too, though I'm going to miss working directly with you. We'll still see each other every day. We'll just have different bosses, which frankly sounds less complicated. True. My new boss can't fire me for refusing to make her terrible coffee. That's unfair. My coffee is fine. Your coffee could strip paint, Victoria. We've discussed this. She laughed, and Ethan felt that now familiar warmth spread through his chest. This was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of joy despite it. Building something new without forgetting what came before. After dinner, they walked through the city, hand in hand, window shopping and talking about nothing important. They ended up at the park where they'd had their picnic with Mia. It was nearly empty this late, just a few other couples and dog walkers enjoying the mild December evening. They sat on a bench overlooking the playground, and Victoria leaned against Ethan's shoulder. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. Do you still think about her, Sarah? Ethan had been expecting this question eventually. He considered lying, sparing Victoria's feelings, but they'd promised honesty. Every day, he admitted. Not the way I used to, not with that consuming grief. But she's still there. Part of my history, part of who I am. Does it bother you that I'm not her? No, because I don't want you to be her. I want you to be you. Ethan turned to look at Victoria. What we have is different from what I had with Sarah. That doesn't make it less important or less real. It just makes it ours. I'm not trying to compete with a memory. I know, and I'm not asking you to. He kissed her forehead. I loved Sarah. I'll always love her. But I love you too. My heart is big enough for both. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I never thought I'd fall for a widower. It's complicated in ways I didn't anticipate. Having regrets? Not even a little. Just acknowledging the reality. She sat up to face him. But Ethan, I need you to promise me something. What? If this ever gets too hard, if the memories are too much, if you're not ready, if Mia needs you to focus on just being her dad, promise you'll tell me. Don't suffer in silence trying to be strong for everyone. I promise. Same goes for you. If the baggage gets too heavy, if you need space, if this relationship is costing you too much professionally or personally, Victoria put her finger over his lips. Not happening. I'm in this, Ethan Cole. All the way in. You're stuck with me. Promise? Promise. They kissed, soft and sweet, and Ethan felt something settle in his soul. Peace. Certainty. The knowledge that whatever came next, they'd face it together. His phone buzzed with a text from Mia's babysitter. She wants to say goodnight. Ethan called home and put it on speaker so Victoria could hear. Hi, Daddy. Hi, Victoria. Mia's voice crackled through. Are you having a good date? The best date, Ethan confirmed. Did you go somewhere fancy? Very fancy. There were cloth napkins and everything. Wow. Did Victoria dress up? I did, Victoria said. I wore the dress you helped me pick out last weekend. The blue one. I knew that was the right choice. Amy's sister says blue is sophisticated. Ethan and Victoria exchanged amused glances. You're absolutely right, Peanut. Very sophisticated. Good. Okay. I'm going to bed now. Love you, Daddy. Love you, Victoria. The casual love you to Victoria made both adults freeze. This was the first time Mia had said it. The weight of those words, the acceptance they implied, settled over them. Love you too, sweetie, Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. Sleep well. After they hung up, Victoria wiped at her eyes. That kid is going to make me cry. She has that effect on people. She told me yesterday that you should move in with us because our apartment is too boring and you have better decorations. She said that? Her exact words were, Victoria has style and we have a couch from 1997. She's not wrong about the couch. Hey, that couch has character. It has stains of mysterious origin. There's a difference. They bantered back and forth, easy and comfortable, and Ethan realized this was what he'd been missing. Not romance exactly, but partnership. Someone to share life's small moments with. Someone who made everything better just by being there. What are you thinking about? Victoria asked. That I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. I wasn't sure I'd feel this way again. And now? Now I'm excited about the future. About us. About whatever comes next. Victoria smiled, linking her fingers through his. Me too. They sat in the park for another hour, making plans for the holidays, for Mia's birthday party in January, for a future that was starting to look remarkably like forever. And when they finally headed home, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real, tangible, solid hope. The kind of hope that made tomorrow worth looking forward to. January arrived with bitter cold and the promise of new beginnings. Ethan's first day in the operations department felt surreal. New desk, new boss, new responsibilities that had nothing to do with managing Victoria's calendar or fixing her coffee disasters. His new supervisor, Marcus Chen, was a laid-back guy in his 40s who greeted Ethan with a firm handshake and a stack of files that needed immediate attention. Welcome to operations, Marcus said, gesturing to the organized chaos of their floor. It's less glamorous than editorial, but we keep this place running. You'll fit right in. Ethan settled into his new role quickly, discovering that he actually enjoyed the work, streamlining processes, solving logistical problems, coordinating between departments. But the best part was being able to see Victoria in the hallways without worrying about appearances. They could smile at each other freely now, share quick conversations by the elevators, meet for lunch without hiding. The office gossip had been brutal for about a week after his transfer was announced. Whispers in the break room about favoritism and inappropriate relationships. A few pointed comments from colleagues who thought they were being clever. But Margaret from HR had shut it down fast, reminding everyone that both parties had followed protocol and that any continued harassment would be dealt with severely. By mid-January, the gossip had faded to background noise. People had new scandals to discuss, and Ethan and Victoria became just another office couple navigating the complicated dance of work-life balance. Mia's 9th birthday party was scheduled for the last Saturday of the month. She'd been planning it for weeks with the intensity of a military general, creating detailed lists of decorations, games, and required snacks. Victoria had been invited, of course, and had taken the responsibility with touching seriousness. "What a 9-year-old's like?" she'd asked Ethan over dinner the week before. "I don't want to show up with something lame and lose all credibility." "You already have credibility. She talks about you constantly." "Still, this is important. It's my first major event as the girlfriend." "Technically, you've been the girlfriend for months." "This is different. This is meeting her friends, meeting other parents, being officially introduced as your partner. The stakes are high, Ethan." He'd laughed at her anxiety. This woman who could negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but was terrified of disappointing a 9-year-old. "Just be yourself. That's all she wants." The party was held at their apartment, which suddenly felt very small with 15 children running around playing elaborate games that Ethan didn't fully understand. Victoria arrived early to help set up, looking adorably out of place in jeans and a sweater, her hair down instead of in its usual professional bun. "Where do these go?" she asked, holding up a package of balloons. "Everywhere, according to Mia's diagram." Ethan showed her the detailed party map his daughter had drawn. "She made a diagram." "She's your influence, organization and color coding." Victoria looked unreasonably pleased by this. They spent the next hour transforming the apartment into what Mia called a proper party space, complete with streamers, balloons, and a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Mia," in glittery letters. When the guests started arriving, Ethan watched Victoria interact with the other parents. She was charming and friendly, answering questions about her work without being condescending, asking genuinely interested questions about their lives. Jennifer, Amy's mom, cornered him in the kitchen while Victoria was organizing a game in the living room. "I like her," Jennifer said. "She's good with the kids, and she looks at you like you hung the moon. You did good, Ethan." "Thanks. I think so too." "How's Mia handling everything?" "Better than I expected, honestly. She adores Victoria. Keeps asking when she's going to move in with us." Jennifer raised her eyebrows. "And how do you feel about that?" "Terrified and excited in equal measure. We've only been together a few months. It feels too soon." "Does it, though? You've known each other for years. You work together. You've already integrated your lives in most ways. Moving in might just be acknowledging what's already happening." Ethan thought about that as he watched Victoria help Mia blow out her birthday candles, the two of them laughing as Mia made a dramatic wish. Jennifer was right. Victoria was already part of their lives in every way that mattered. She'd been to Mia's school events, had dinner with them at least 3 times a week, kept spare clothes at their apartment for the night she stayed over after Mia was asleep. But moving in felt like a line they couldn't uncross. A commitment that required certainty Ethan wasn't sure he had yet. After the party, after the last guest had left and Mia was sorting through her presents with the methodical precision she'd inherited from both her parents, Victoria helped Ethan clean up. "That was fun," she said, collecting paper plates. "Exhausting, but fun. You were amazing with the kids. Half of them want you to come to their birthday parties too." "I heard. Amy already invited me to hers in March." Victoria dumped plates in the trash. "Is it weird that I actually want to go?" "A little, but in a good way." They cleaned in comfortable silence, the apartment slowly returning to its normal state of organized chaos. Mia appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her party hat. Victoria, will you read me my new book, the one you got me? Victoria glanced at Ethan, who nodded. Of course, sweetie. Go get ready for bed and I'll meet you in your room. After Mia disappeared, Victoria turned to Ethan. Is this okay? I don't want to overstep. You're not overstepping. She asked because she wants you there. That's good. You're sure? I'm sure. Ethan finished cleaning while listening to Victoria's voice drift from Mia's room, reading about dragons and brave girls and magical adventures. When he peeked in 20 minutes later, Mia was fast asleep, her new book clutched to her chest, and Victoria was carefully extracting herself from the bed. They tiptoed out together, and Ethan pulled Victoria close in the hallway. Thank you, he whispered, for everything today, for being here, for loving my kid. Easy to love her. She's pretty great. Victoria kissed him softly. I should probably go. It's late. Or you could stay. Hey, Ethan, we agreed. I know what we agreed, but Mia's asleep and I'm not ready for you to leave yet. He rested his forehead against hers. Stay, please. Victoria stayed. They fell asleep on the couch watching a movie wrapped around each other, and when Ethan woke at 3 a.m. with a crick in his neck, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. This felt right. Victoria in his space, in his life, fitting like she'd always been there. The next morning, Mia found them making pancakes together, Ethan cooking while Victoria provided unhelpful commentary. Did Victoria sleep over? Mia asked without preamble. Ethan and Victoria exchanged glances. They talked about this possibility, how to handle it if Mia noticed. I did, Victoria said. Your dad and I fell asleep watching a movie. Is that okay with you? Mia shrugged, grabbing juice from the fridge. I guess. Does this mean you're going to be here more? Would you want that? Maybe. Our apartment is kind of small, though, and you have a lot of books. Where would they all go? Ethan nearly dropped the spatula. Nobody said anything about moving in, Peanut. But that's what people do when they love each other, right? They live together? Mia looked between them with those two perceptive eyes. Don't you want to live together? Victoria rescued him. Sometimes people do live together, but it's a big decision that requires a lot of talking and planning. Your dad and I haven't had those conversations yet. Well, you should, because I'm tired of you leaving all the time. It would be easier if you just stayed. With that pronouncement, Mia took her juice to the living room, leaving 2 stunned adults in the kitchen. She's 9, Ethan said weakly. She doesn't understand the implications. She understands perfectly. Kids are perceptive. Victoria flipped a pancake with more force than necessary. And she's not wrong. This back and forth is getting complicated. Are you saying you want to move in? I'm saying it's worth discussing. Not today, not this week, but eventually. Because Mia's right. I am here all the time. I have a toothbrush in your bathroom and clothes in your closet. At what point do we acknowledge that I'm basically living here already? The conversation was interrupted by Mia yelling that her favorite show was starting, but it hung over Ethan for the rest of the day. After Victoria left that evening, he found himself looking at his apartment differently. The worn couch that Mia had criticized, the secondhand furniture that had seen better days, the tiny second bedroom that barely fit Mia's bed and dresser. Where would Victoria's things go if she moved in? Where would she work when she needed quiet? How would they navigate sharing space when they'd both lived alone for so long? The questions spiraled until Ethan forced himself to stop. This was future talk, problem-solving issues that didn't exist yet. He was getting ahead of himself. But that night, lying in bed, he couldn't shake Mia's simple logic. That's what people do when they love each other. They live together. Did he love Victoria enough to share his space permanently? Did she love him enough to give up her beautiful apartment with its working elevator and her perfectly organized bookshelves? Was love even the right metric for making this decision? His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Still thinking about this morning? How did you know? Because I know you. You're probably making a pro-con list in your head. She wasn't wrong, maybe. For the record, I'm not pushing for anything. Mia caught us off guard and we didn't handle it well, but Ethan, when you're ready to have that conversation, actually ready, not just placating your daughter. I'm here. I know. Thank you for being patient with me. Always. Now stop overthinking and get some sleep. You first. Deal. Love you. Love you too. Ethan set down his phone and stared at the ceiling. He was overthinking. It was his default mode, analyzing everything to death instead of just feeling. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe he needed to stop thinking about what living with Victoria might be like and just trust that they'd figure it out together. Monday at work brought a different kind of complication. Ethan was in a meeting with Marcus and the logistics team when Margaret from HR appeared at the door. "Ethan, can I borrow you for a moment?" His stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from surprise HR visits. He followed Margaret to a conference room where, to his shock, Victoria was already sitting, looking pale. "What's going on?" Ethan asked. Margaret closed the door. "We have a situation. Someone has filed a formal complaint alleging that Victoria's recommendation letter for your promotion was inappropriate given your relationship. They're claiming the hiring process was compromised." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. "But Victoria recused herself. She wasn't part of the decision." "I'm aware, and the investigation will show that. But the complaint has been filed, which means I'm required to review the entire hiring process." Margaret looked genuinely sympathetic. "I want to be clear. I don't believe there was any impropriety. But until this is resolved, Ethan, you'll need to be placed on administrative leave." "What?" Victoria stood abruptly. "That's insane. He earned that position. The complaint is baseless, which the investigation will prove, but protocol is punishing him for having a relationship. This is exactly the kind of discrimination." "Victoria." Ethan touched her arm. "It's okay. It's not okay. You worked hard for this. You deserve the promotion. This is someone being vindictive, probably the same people who were spreading gossip." Margaret waited until Victoria sat back down. "I understand you're upset, but my hands are tied. The complaint exists, so I have to investigate. Ethan will continue to receive his salary during the leave. This should be resolved within 2 weeks. 2 weeks of sitting at home while people questioned whether he'd earned his position or just slept his way into it." Ethan felt sick. After Margaret left, Victoria turned to him, her eyes blazing. "This is my fault. I should have been more careful, should have realized people would target you. This isn't your fault. It's the fault of whoever filed the complaint." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Do we know who it was?" Margaret couldn't say, but I have my suspicions. Victoria's expression turned calculating. "David from sales has been bitter since I rejected his manuscript submission last year, and he's friends with some of the people who were making comments about us. You can't accuse someone without proof. Watch me." "Victoria, no. Let Margaret do her job. The investigation will show I earned the position. Getting into fights with David will only make things worse." She deflated, all the fight going out of her. "I hate this. I hate that loving you comes with consequences for your career." "Hey." Ethan pulled her close, not caring that they were still at the office. "Loving me doesn't come with consequences. Small-minded people who can't handle others being happy come with consequences. That's not on you." "It feels like it's on me." "Well, it's not. We did everything right. We followed protocol. We were transparent with HR. This is just someone trying to cause trouble." Victoria pulled back, studying his face. "You're being very calm about this. One of us has to be, and you look like you're about to commit murder." "I'm considering it." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "There's my fierce girlfriend, but seriously, don't do anything that will make this worse. Let the process work." She nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but I'm not happy about it." "Neither am I. But we'll get through this." Ethan went home that afternoon feeling unmoored. 2 weeks of forced leave stretched ahead of him like a prison sentence. He picked up Mia from school and tried to act normal, but she noticed immediately. "Why are you home early?" "Work stuff. I'm taking some time off." "Are you sick?" "No, Peanut. Just some administrative things that need to be sorted out." Mia didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. That evening, while she did homework, Ethan sat on the couch staring at nothing, his mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if the investigation found something questionable? What if he lost the promotion? What if this followed him for the rest of his career? His phone rang. Rachel, Victoria's sister. "Did Vic tell you what happened?" Rachel asked without preamble. "The complaint? Yeah." I did some digging, called in a few favors with people at your company. It was David Morrison from sales. He filed it anonymously, but my source saw the paperwork. Ethan closed his eyes. Of course it was him. The good news is, from what I'm hearing, Margaret's investigation is already showing you were the most qualified candidate. Multiple people interviewed for the position ranked you highest. Victoria's recusal is documented. This complaint is going nowhere. And the bad news? The bad news is David is trying to stir up more trouble. He's been talking to other employees, suggesting there were other improprieties, trying to build a case that Victoria has been giving you preferential treatment for years. That's insane. I worked my ass off as her assistant. I know, and Margaret knows. But Ethan, you need to prepare for this to get ugly before it gets better. David has an axe to grind, and he's not going quietly. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the growing darkness, feeling the weight of the situation settle over him. This wasn't just about the promotion anymore. This was someone actively trying to destroy his career and damage Victoria's reputation. When Victoria came over that night after Mia was asleep, she looked exhausted. "Rachel called you," she said, reading his expression. "Yeah. So you know it's David, and you know he's not stopping with just the complaint." "I know." Ethan pulled her down onto the couch. "But Rachel also said Margaret's investigation is going well. We just have to weather this." "I'm not good at weathering things. I'm good at fighting back." Victoria's voice was tight with frustration. "I want to march into David's office and tell him exactly what I think of his petty, vindictive, which would be satisfying for about 5 minutes and then would make everything worse." "I know. Doesn't mean I don't want to do it." They sat in silence, Victoria's head on Ethan's shoulder, and he felt the familiar weight of responsibility. This was affecting her too. Her reputation, her peace of mind, her ability to do her job without constantly worrying about perception. "Maybe we should take a break," Ethan said quietly, "until this blows over." Victoria sat up, staring at him. "What?" "Just temporarily, to remove fuel from David's fire. If we're not actively together, he has less ammunition." "Ethan Cole, if you think I'm going to hide our relationship because some bitter man-child can't handle rejection, you've lost your mind." Victoria's eyes flashed. "I'm not ashamed of loving you. I'm not going to pretend I don't just to make this easier. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need a partner who's willing to stand with me, not suggest we hide." She stood, pacing. "This is exactly what they want, Ethan, to make us feel like our relationship is the problem. It's not. David's vendetta is the problem. But if we just... No, absolutely not. We are not taking a break. We are not hiding. We are going to continue exactly as we have been because we did nothing wrong." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "Unless you actually want a break. Unless this is your way of saying it's all too much." "It's not that." "Then what is it?" Ethan stood, meeting her eyes. "It's me being scared. Again. Of losing my job, of ruining your career, of everything falling apart. And my default when I'm scared is to pull away, to protect myself. And what do you think that does to me? When you pull away? It hurts you. I know. I'm sorry." He reached for her hands. "You're right. No breaks, no hiding. We face this together." Victoria's expression softened. "Together. That's all I'm asking." They held each other, and Ethan felt the familiar war between fear and love wage in his chest. Fear was easier. Fear was what he knew. But love, messy, complicated, inconvenient love, was what he needed. "I'm really bad at this," he said into her hair. "At what?" "Being brave. Being the partner you deserve. Not letting fear control everything." "You're better at it than you think. You're here, aren't you? Fighting for us even when it's hard?" "Barely." "Barely is still showing up. That counts." Victoria pulled back to look at him. "But Ethan, I need you to promise me something. The next time you get scared, talk to me instead of suggesting we break up. Because that's becoming a pattern, and it's not okay." She was right. Every time things got difficult, his first instinct was to suggest distance, separation, protection through isolation. It wasn't fair to Victoria, and it wasn't healthy for their relationship. "I promise," he said. "No more suggesting breaks when things get hard. We work through it together." Good, because you're stuck with me, and I'm stubborn enough to hold you to that. The next 2 weeks were excruciating. Ethan stayed home, trying to be productive, but mostly just spiraling. Mia noticed his anxiety and started bringing home art projects meant to cheer him up. Drawings of their family, which now consistently included Victoria. It was sweet and heartbreaking in equal measure. Victoria called every day during her lunch break, updating him on the investigation's progress. Margaret was being thorough, interviewing everyone involved in the hiring process, reviewing all documentation. The evidence overwhelmingly showed that Ethan had been the most qualified candidate and that Victoria had properly recused herself. But David wasn't making it easy. He'd apparently found a few allies among the staff, people who were happy to whisper about impropriety and question whether the relationship had started before Ethan's transfer. On day 12 of Ethan's leave, Victoria showed up at his apartment in the middle of the workday, her face flushed with anger. "What happened?" Ethan asked, alarmed. "David cornered me in the parking lot, started making insinuations about our relationship, about whether I'd been grooming you while you were my assistant." Victoria's hands were shaking. "I didn't hit him. I wanted to, but I didn't." "That's insane. We can report him for harassment. Margaret already knows. I went straight to her. She's adding it to the investigation." Victoria collapsed on his couch. "But Ethan, this is escalating. David is getting desperate, which means he's getting more aggressive." "Then the investigation must not be going his way." "That's what Margaret said. She told me, off the record, that they found no evidence of impropriety. Your promotion was earned. David's complaint is baseless. But she can't officially close the case until she's interviewed everyone and reviewed all the documentation." "How much longer?" "Days, not weeks. She's fast-tracking it now that David's behavior has become problematic." Ethan pulled Victoria close, feeling her tension slowly ease. "It's almost over. We just have to hold on a little longer." "I'm tired of holding on. I'm tired of defending our relationship to people who have no business judging it. I'm tired of watching you suffer because someone decided to be vindictive." "I know, me too." They sat like that until Ethan had to leave to pick up Mia from school. Victoria came with him, and Mia's face lit up when she saw them both. "Are you taking the day off too, Victoria?" "Something like that. Thought I'd spend the afternoon with my two favorite people." They went to the park, the same one where Ethan and Victoria had their early dates. Mia ran ahead to the playground while they walked behind, hand in hand. "I've been thinking about what you said," Victoria said suddenly. "About moving in together." Ethan's heart skipped. "Yeah?" "When this investigation is over, when things settle down, I think we should do it. Not because Mia suggested it or because it's practical, but because I want to. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to share space and make decisions together. I want to build a life with you and Mia that's fully integrated, not this half in, half out thing we've been doing." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Are you?" Ethan watched Mia on the swings, then looked at Victoria, this woman who'd fought for their relationship even when it would have been easier to walk away, who loved his daughter, who made him believe in futures again. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sure." They kissed, right there in the middle of the park, and Ethan felt something fundamental shift. This wasn't just about romance anymore. This was about family, about building something permanent, about choosing love even when it was complicated. 3 days later, Margaret called with the news. The investigation was complete. Ethan's promotion was legitimate. David's complaint was unfounded and would be dismissed. David himself was being disciplined for workplace harassment and creating a hostile environment. Ethan could return to work immediately. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt fury. Fury at the 2 weeks stolen from him. Fury at the stress inflicted on Victoria. Fury at a system that allowed baseless accusations to derail lives. Victoria found him in his car after his first day back, sitting in the parking lot. "Hey," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "You okay?" "I should be. We won. David was wrong. Everything's going back to normal." But I'm angry, really angry, and I don't know what to do with it." Victoria took his hand. "Be angry. You're allowed. What happened was unfair and traumatic. Don't rush past that to get to normal." "How are you not furious?" "Oh, I'm furious. I've been rage organizing my entire apartment. My books are now sorted by publication date and genre. It's excessive." Despite everything, Ethan laughed. That does sound excessive. We're going to get through this. The anger will fade. And Ethan, we're stronger for it. We faced something hard, and we came through together. She was right. They had. For the first time since this started, Ethan had chosen to stay instead of run, to fight instead of hide. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Move in with me, he said suddenly. Not eventually. Now. This week. I want you there. Victoria's eyes widened. Ethan, I know my apartment is small and my couch is terrible and we'll have to figure out logistics, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want you home. What about Mia? She's been asking for months. Trust me, she'll be thrilled. Victoria kissed him, laughing against his mouth. Okay, yes, let's do this. And just like that, everything changed. Not gradually, not carefully planned, but all at once, the way the best things in life often did. The decision to move in together turned out to be easier than the actual logistics of making it happen. Victoria's apartment was twice the size of Ethan's, with better light, a working elevator, and enough space for all her books. The choice was obvious, even if it meant uprooting Mia from the only home she'd known since Sarah died. Ethan broke the news to his daughter over breakfast on Saturday morning, bracing himself for resistance, or tears, or the complicated emotions of a 9-year-old being asked to leave her childhood home. We're moving to Victoria's place, Mia said flatly. Finally. I thought you'd never ask. Ethan blinked. You're not upset? Why would I be upset? Her place is way nicer. Plus she has that big window seat I can read in. And the building has an actual working elevator, Daddy. Do you know how many times I've had to walk up 3 flights of stairs carrying school projects? Yes, I'm aware. Good. When do we move? Just like that, the biggest hurdle Ethan had imagined evaporated. They spent the next 2 weeks packing, sorting through 3 years of accumulated belongings. Ethan found himself paralyzed by small decisions. Keep the coffee maker Sarah had bought him, or use Victoria's newer one. Pack the throw pillows, or donate them. What about the photos? Victoria found him one evening sitting on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by picture frames, his face wet with tears he hadn't realized he was shedding. Hey, she said softly, sitting beside him. What's wrong? Ethan gestured helplessly at the photos. I don't know where these go. In our new place. Some of them are just Sarah, some are Sarah and Mia, some are our whole family, and I want to bring them, but I don't want you to feel like you're living in a shrine to my dead wife. Victoria picked up a frame. Ethan and Sarah on their wedding day, both of them impossibly young and happy. She studied it for a long moment. This is part of your history, part of Mia's history. Of course you bring them. She looked at Ethan. I'm not threatened by Sarah's memory. I never was. She was important to you, she gave you Mia, and she deserves to be remembered. We'll find places for these photos where they feel right, where Mia can see her mother and remember her. You're sure? I'm sure. But Ethan, maybe not the bedroom. That's our space. For us. The living room, Mia's room, the hallway, those are family spaces. The photos belong there. It was such a simple solution, such a clear boundary that Ethan wondered why he hadn't thought of it himself. But that was Victoria, practical even in emotional moments, finding ways to honor the past while building the future. They packed the photos carefully, along with Sarah's favorite mug that Mia refused to part with, and a few other small mementos. The rest, furniture, kitchen items, the terrible couch, went to donation or trash. It felt like shedding skin, leaving behind the physical remnants of his grief while keeping the important pieces. Moving day arrived with unexpected sunshine for February. Rachel showed up with a truck and 3 friends who worked in her law firm, all of them ready to haul boxes. Mia supervised with the authority of a small general, directing traffic and making sure her room was unpacked first. By evening, Ethan stood in Victoria's, their apartment, surrounded by boxes but feeling something shift in his chest. This was home now. Not the place where he'd survived Sarah's death, but the place where he'd build a new life. Daddy, come look, Mia called from her new room. He found her arranging her books on the built-in shelves, her stuffed elephant already on the bed. Victoria had let Mia choose the paint color, and she'd picked a soft purple that made the room feel cozy and bright. What do you think, Peanut? It's perfect. Way better than my old room. No offense to our old apartment. None taken. And look, Mia pointed to the window seat, where Victoria had already added cushions and a reading lamp. My own library nook. Amy's going to die when she sees this. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling grateful beyond words that this transition was easy for her, that she was resilient and adaptable and wise beyond her years. I'm glad you're happy here. I'm glad you're happy, Daddy. You smile more now, like you used to in the pictures with Mom. The observation hit him square in the chest. He hadn't realized how much his grief had been visible to Mia, how much she'd been watching him struggle. I am happy, he said. Really happy. Good. Now can you help me organize my art supplies? Victoria has this whole drawer system thing, and I want to do it right. That night, after Mia was asleep in her new room and the worst of the unpacking was done, Ethan and Victoria collapsed on her couch, now their couch, with glasses of wine. We did it, Victoria said, kicking off her shoes. We officially live together. We do. How does it feel? Right. Scary, but right. She leaned against him. How about you? Same. I keep waiting for the panic to set in, but it hasn't yet. Give it time. We'll probably have our first fight about something stupid like whose turn it is to do dishes. I'm looking forward to it. The domesticity of fighting about dishes. Victoria laughed. You're weird. You love it. I really do. They sat in comfortable silence, and Ethan felt the last piece of resistance inside him finally let go. This was what moving forward looked like. Not forgetting Sarah or pretending the past 3 years hadn't happened, but making space for something new alongside the memory of what was. The first month of living together was an adjustment. Ethan learned that Victoria was actually a morning person when left to her natural rhythm, singing off-key in the shower before 6 a.m. Victoria learned that Ethan's organized system for the kitchen made sense only to him, and that arguing about it was pointless. They learned each other's rhythms, quirks, and boundaries. They also learned that Mia was an excellent mediator when they did fight about stupid things. You're both being ridiculous, she announced one Sunday when Ethan and Victoria were bickering about the proper way to load the dishwasher. The dishes get clean either way. Now can we please go to the museum like you promised? Ethan and Victoria looked at each other and started laughing. She's right, Victoria said. We're being ridiculous. Completely ridiculous, Ethan agreed. I know, Mia said smugly. I'm very smart. Work settled into a new normal too. Ethan thrived in operations, discovering skills he hadn't known he had. Victoria got a massive promotion to VP of editorial, a recognition of her years of brilliant work. The office gossip about their relationship faded as people found new things to talk about. David from sales quietly left the company after the investigation concluded, though rumor had it he was pushed rather than jumped. Ethan felt no satisfaction in his departure, only relief that the chapter was closed. By spring, their life together felt established, comfortable, like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. Ethan would come home to find Victoria and Mia reading together, or Victoria would walk in on Ethan teaching Mia to cook, and each moment felt like a small miracle. The only thing that hadn't been discussed was the future. Marriage. More commitment. Ethan knew Victoria was waiting for him to bring it up, to decide when he was ready for that next step. But he kept hesitating, not from doubt, but from the weight of the decision. One evening in late April, Rachel cornered him at a family dinner at Victoria's parents' house. So when are you going to propose? She asked without preamble. Ethan nearly choked on his wine. What? To my sister. When are you proposing? Because she's clearly waiting for you to ask, and you're clearly overthinking it. I'm not. We haven't been together that long. You've been together almost 6 months. You live together. You're co-parenting Mia. You're basically married already, just without the paperwork. Rachel fixed him with a look. What are you waiting for? I don't know. The right time? There's no such thing as the right time. There's just now, and whether you're brave enough to commit to it. It was such a Victoria thing to say that Ethan realized Rachel and her sister were more alike than either would admit. What if I mess it up? He said quietly. The proposal. What if it's not good enough? Ethan, my sister fell in love with you while watching you color code her filing system. I don't think your proposal needs to be elaborate. It just needs to be real. That night, lying in bed with Victoria asleep beside him, Ethan thought about Rachel's words. There was no perfect time. There was just the choice to move forward or stay stuck in comfortable limbo. He wanted to move forward. The next day, during his lunch break, Ethan went to a jewelry store. He had no idea what he was looking for. Sarah's engagement ring had been a family heirloom chosen by his grandmother. This needed to be different, something that was entirely Victoria. The saleswoman showed him dozens of rings, each more elaborate than the last, but none felt right. He was about to give up when he saw it. A simple platinum band with a small sapphire, elegant and understated. It reminded him of Victoria, beautiful without being flashy, perfect in its simplicity. That one, he said. Excellent choice. The sapphire is ethically sourced, and the platinum is, I'll take it. He left the store with the ring box burning a hole in his pocket and absolutely no plan for how to actually propose. Victoria would hate something public and showy, but she also deserved more than a casual, hey, want to get married? Over breakfast. Ethan was still planning when, 3 days later, everything fell apart. He got the call at work. Mia's school. She'd fallen during recess, hit her head, and was being taken to the hospital as a precaution. Victoria was already on her way, having been listed as Mia's second emergency contact. Ethan drove to the hospital with his heart in his throat, memories of Sarah's accident flooding back. The phone call, the hospital, the terrible waiting. He couldn't do this again. He couldn't lose someone else. He found Victoria in the emergency room waiting area, pacing. Where is she? What happened? Is she okay? She's getting a CT scan. The school said she was unconscious for a few seconds after she fell, so they're being cautious. Victoria grabbed his hands. Ethan, breathe. The doctor said it's probably just a concussion, but they want to be sure. Where's the doctor? I need to talk to them. They'll come get us as soon as the scan is done. Sit down. You're going to pass out. Ethan couldn't sit. He paced the waiting room, his mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if it was serious? What if she had brain bleeding? What if... Mr. Cole? A doctor approached, and Ethan's heart stopped. Mia's fine. The CT scan is clear. She has a mild concussion, which means she needs to take it easy for a few days, but there's no serious damage. She's asking for you. The relief was so intense that Ethan's knees nearly buckled. Victoria steadied him, her own relief visible in her expression. They found Mia in an examination room, looking small in the hospital bed, but alert and annoyed. I'm fine, Daddy. Everyone's making a big deal out of nothing. You were unconscious, Ethan said, his voice shaking. For like 2 seconds. Amy says I just needed a nap. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. He pulled Mia into a careful hug, breathing her in, grateful beyond words that she was okay. Victoria stood by the door, giving them space, and Ethan suddenly saw her with new clarity. She'd dropped everything at work to rush to the hospital. She'd called him immediately, had been there when he arrived, had held him together when he was falling apart. This was family, real, messy, terrifying family. And he didn't want to wait another day to make it official. After they got home and Mia was settled on the couch with strict instructions to rest, Ethan pulled Victoria into the kitchen. I need to talk to you about something. If this is about me leaving work early, Marcus already approved it. It's not about that. Ethan pulled the ring box from his pocket, where it had been living for 3 days. It's about this. Victoria stared at the box. Ethan, today, when I got the call about Mia, all I could think was that I couldn't do this alone, that I needed you there. And you were there, without question, without hesitation. You've been there for months now, being a partner and a co-parent, and the person I want to build a life with. He opened the box, revealing the sapphire ring. I know this isn't romantic. I know I'm probably supposed to plan something elaborate. But Victoria, I don't want to wait. I love you. Mia loves you. And I want you to be part of our family officially. Will you marry me? Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You're proposing in our kitchen while our daughter recovers from a concussion in the next room? Yes. That's very on brand for us. She laughed through her tears. Yes. Of course, yes. I love you, you ridiculous man. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, and Victoria pulled him into a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and relief and joy all mixed together. "Can I tell Mia?" Victoria asked. "Tell me what?" They turned to find Mia standing in the kitchen doorway, looking suspicious. "You're supposed to be resting," Ethan said. "You're supposed to be proposing more quietly. I could hear you from the couch." Mia looked at Victoria's hand. "Is that an engagement ring?" "It is," Victoria confirmed. "Your dad just asked me to marry him." "Finally! I was starting to think you'd never figure it out." Mia walked over, studying the ring. "It's pretty. Classier than the huge ones Amy's sister looks at on Instagram." "Thank you." Victoria looked amused. "How do you feel about this, Mia?" "Really?" Mia considered the question with her characteristic seriousness. "I think it's good. You make Daddy happy, and he makes you happy, and you're both nice to me. Plus now I get to be a flower girl, which Amy says is the best part of weddings." "You'll be the best flower girl," Victoria promised. "I know. I'm excellent at everything." The wedding planning happened gradually over the next several months. Victoria wanted something small and meaningful, which suited Ethan perfectly. They chose a date in late September, giving them time to plan without rushing. The only complication came from an unexpected source. In July, Victoria was offered a position as editorial director at a prestigious publishing house in New York. It was a dream job: more money, more prestige, more influence in the industry. It was everything she'd worked toward her entire career. It was also 200 miles away. She told Ethan about the offer on a Friday evening, her voice careful and neutral. "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked. "I don't know. It's an incredible opportunity. But it would mean uprooting everything. Our life here, your job, Mia's school." "So we'd move to New York." Victoria stared at him. "Just like that? You'd give up your job, move Mia away from her friends, start over in a new city?" "If it means you get to pursue your dream, yes, absolutely." "Ethan, this is a huge decision." "I know, but Victoria, you've spent months supporting my career, my choices, my needs. It's my turn to support yours. If you want this job, we'll make it work." They talked late into the night, weighing pros and cons. By morning, they'd made a decision. Victoria would take the job. They'd move to New York after the wedding, giving Mia time to finish the school year in her current district. Ethan would look for operations positions in the city. It would be hard, but they'd do it together. When they told Mia, she surprised them again. "Will there be museums in New York?" "Lots of museums," Ethan confirmed. "And libraries? The biggest libraries you've ever seen." "Okay then, but I want my own room, and it has to be purple." "Deal." The wedding took place in a small garden venue, just family and close friends. Mia stood up with them as a junior bridesmaid, wearing a purple dress she'd picked out herself and carrying the rings with the solemnity of someone entrusted with the crown jewels. Ethan's hands shook as he stood at the altar waiting for Victoria, not from doubt, but from the overwhelming reality of this moment. 3 years ago, he'd been convinced he'd never feel anything again. That love was something that had happened to him once and was now gone forever. Then Victoria appeared at the end of the aisle, and Ethan felt his breath catch. She wore a simple ivory dress, her hair down, a bouquet of wildflowers in her hands. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. As she walked toward him, Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here, the dating profile that started it all, the lunches where they'd fallen in love, the fights and reconciliations, the decision to move in together, the proposal in their kitchen. All of it had led to this moment. Victoria reached him, and he took her hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi yourself." The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows, and when it was Ethan's turn to speak, he looked into Victoria's eyes and said the truth. "I was lost when I met you, going through the motions of life, but not really living. You showed me that it was possible to honor the past while building a future, that my heart was big enough for both grief and joy. You loved my daughter like she was your own. You fought for us when it would have been easier to walk away. You make me laugh. You challenge me to be better, and you've given me permission to be happy again. I love you, Victoria Hale, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving it." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden, including Victoria's, who had to blink back tears before she could say her own vows. Ethan Cole, You are the kindest, most stubborn, most loving man I've ever known. You taught me that real love isn't perfect or easy. It's showing up even when you're scared. It's choosing each other every day. It's building a family not from blood alone, but from choice and commitment. I love you and Mia more than I thought it was possible to love anything. And I promise to be your partner, your support, and your pain in the neck who organizes everything for as long as we both shall live. When they kissed, Mia cheered louder than anyone, and Ethan laughed against Victoria's mouth, feeling more complete than he ever had. The reception was casual, with good food and better wine and dancing that went late into the evening. Ethan danced with Mia, who stood on his feet like she used to when she was small. "You happy, Daddy?" "The happiest." "Good, because Victoria told me we get a puppy when we move to New York." She said, "What now?" Mia grinned, unrepentant. "A puppy. She promised." Across the dance floor, Victoria caught his eye and shrugged, smiling. Ethan shook his head, laughing. This was his life now. A wife who made promises to his daughter without consulting him. A move to New York, a future full of unknowns. And he couldn't wait. The move to New York happened in October, after the wedding high had faded and reality set in. They found an apartment in Brooklyn with good schools nearby and enough space for all of Victoria's books. Ethan landed a position as director of operations at a mid-sized publisher, a step up from his previous role. Mia adjusted faster than either adult, making friends at her new school within a week and declaring New York way cooler than home, no offense. The first few months were hard. Everything was expensive, the city was loud, and Ethan sometimes felt overwhelmed by the sheer chaos of it all. But Victoria thrived in her new position, and watching her bloom into the role she was meant for made every challenge worth it. 1 year after the wedding, Ethan stood in their Brooklyn apartment looking at the photos on the wall. Sarah and Mia, frozen in time. Victoria and Mia at Mia's 10th birthday party. The three of them at the beach last summer. A whole family built from grief and hope and choice. Mia appeared beside him, now 10 and somehow seeming older every day. Thinking about Mom? Yeah. Wondering if she'd approve of all this. Mia leaned against him. I think she would. You're happy. I'm happy. That's what she'd want. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just finally started listening. Victoria came home from work, bringing the autumn cold with her, and Ethan felt that familiar warmth bloom in his chest. She kissed him in greeting, then Mia, then started telling them about her day. A difficult author, a brilliant manuscript, the office politics that never quite went away. Ethan listened, chiming in with comments, making her laugh, and realized this was it, the life he'd built. The future he'd been too afraid to imagine 3 years ago. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. That night, after Mia was asleep and the city sounds drifted through their windows, Ethan and Victoria lay in bed talking about everything and nothing. Do you ever regret it? Victoria asked. Leaving your old life? Moving here? Not even once, do you? No. This, us, was worth every complication. She turned to face him. Though I reserve the right to complain about subway delays. Fair. I reserve the right to complain about pigeons. They are aggressively large here. Terrifyingly so. They laughed, and Ethan pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her beside him. 3 years ago, he'd thought his story was over, that the best chapters of his life had been written and he was just living the epilogue. But Victoria had shown him that wasn't true, that life kept going, kept surprising you, kept offering chances for new beginnings if you were brave enough to take them. He'd taken the chance. He'd chosen love over fear, hope over grief, living over merely surviving. And the best part? The story wasn't over, it was just beginning. Somewhere in the quiet darkness, Ethan thought he felt Sarah's presence, not sad or haunting, but peaceful, approving, letting go. Thank you, he whispered, to her or to the universe, or to whatever force had brought Victoria into his life. Victoria stirred. What? Nothing, just grateful. Me too. They fell asleep tangled together, and outside their window, the city that never slept kept humming along, full of stories ending and beginning and continuing, just like theirs. Years later, when people asked Ethan how he'd met his wife, he'd smile and tell them about a dating profile gone wrong and a question that changed everything. Why don't you just take me out instead? The simplest question, the bravest answer, and the beginning of a life fully lived again. The end.